Governing Board meeting of the Jefferson Elementary School District for June 12, 2019. May I please get members present?
Shakil Ali.
Here.
Marie Brizuela. Here. Maybell Monio. Here. Manufo Leah Anawai.
Here.
Clayton Koo.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance, led by students from Marjorie H. Tobias Elementary School.
You're all standing, right?
Yes.
Raise the flag. Cross your heart with your right hand. How does this work? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Thank you. Next item is item 4, Governance Team Meeting Guidelines. Governance team members will review the Governance Team Meeting Guidelines.
So sick of it. They keep saying it. You're gonna make me do it.
Next is approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, special presentations. Marjorie H. Tobias Elementary Student Council. The MHT Student Council will present their experiences as school leaders, decision makers, and student government.
Hi, JESD School Board and Cabinet. Thank you for having us this evening. So the fog's rolled back in. Is everybody happy about that? Okay, good. We have a student council at our site, and every year they have an election, and our students, we also have representatives, and they make decisions, and they're learning to be the leaders for the next generation. So we're really proud of them, and we're really actually proud of them to have them here tonight. But I want to acknowledge some teachers who work with them diligently. Mr. Julian Grant works his lunch hour once a week with the students to prep them and work with them from 3rd through 5th grade students that are part of the student council. And also Mrs. Betty Lou, she has prepared them for this evening event. But the real just two of our many staff who go above and beyond. So I'd like to, without further ado, welcome the real superstars, the student council at MHT.
Good evening, board members. My name is Alvin Tang, and I am a class representative at MHT. I attend student council meetings and report back to my class. One of our greatest activities at school is gardening. We work with our parent volunteers to work in our school gardens. Each class has a garden box. We plant, harvest, and eat our own vegetables. We continue to clean up our native plant garden. Ms. Taka's class usually gives tours of the native plant garden to our students every year. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Ayana Hernandez. I am a class representative at MH Tobias. I have participated in student council since I was in 3rd grade, and I've noticed many changes and improvements at our school. The student council gives us responsibilities such as fundraising and planning spirit days. We give suggestions and ask the principal for approval at the PTA announces our spirit days in their newsletters. Our school also works with Precita Eyes with painting the murals at our school. So far, our MUR is completed and 3 sections of our school walls are done. We also create newsletters. We interview staff members, write articles, and survey students. We add art and illustrations on the newsletters. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Hannah Fung, and I'm the Student Body Secretary at Marjorie H. Tobias. As secretary, I'm responsible for taking notes at our weekly meetings with Mr. Grant, who is our student council advisor. I like being part of student council because we participate in skits and role play for assemblies like the readathon and during PBIS assemblies. Our school rules are the 3 R's: respectful, responsible, and ready to learn. We create and show different situations that reflect the 3 R's. I'm also in the school poster club, which makes all the posters for our school events. My favorite part of student council is making announcements on the intercom. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, board members. My name is Dylan De Leon. I am the student body vice president of MH Tobias Elementary School. I would like to share some of my experiences with MHT Student Council. I enjoy making posters for upcoming events. For example, for Earth Day, we made posters about California endangered species. This gives me the opportunity to interact with fellow students across grade levels. Student Council has helped me with my public speaking. Every week, I give announcements over the loudspeaker. I practice what I will say so I sound professional. Now I feel more confident and get less nervous. During the Readathon assembly, the Student Council led the Readathon pledge to the students. The Readathon was a month-long event to promote lifelong readers. During our weekly announcements, we took turns reading students' book reflections. I enjoyed my time as vice president.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jaden Liu. I am the student body class president at MH Tobias. Last year as vice president, I supported the student council in making fun activities and spirit days at the school. This year, I enjoyed taking the leadership role as president. As our reps have mentioned, we participated in skits during assemblies, and my favorite part of student councils is also making announcements on the intercom. This year, we worked hard to reach out to our community. We hosted our first coat drive during the winter, as well as the annual food drive. The PTA also held a toy drive at our winter celebration. Our school made cards for the military, and the Air Force sergeants visited the student council to collect their cards in person. The school's biggest fundraiser was the Eagle Olympics. The profits went to various activities like peopleology, dancing through young audiences, and STEM workshops from different museums, including a planetarium presentation. The Eagle Olympics also funded all of our field trips. In closing, our school carnival theme was superheroes, which included our community heroes, the fire and police department. We also invited the school board members to enjoy our community activities. Thank you, Mr. Vidales and Mr. Koo, for joining us. Thank you for giving us time to tell you about our school.
And that's it for the student, but I want to say I too like them being on the intercom because I can do other things while they're making the announcements.
Oh, all right.
Thank you. Do my board members have any kind of comments?
Oh, yes, thank you. It's such a delight to hear you all come here and speak to us. What sticks out in my mind is all the skills that you learned and all the different activities that go along with being on student council. So my hat, if I had one, goes off to all of you and to the teachers also that coordinated this.
Well, I'd like to say how much I enjoyed each one of you. I couldn't choose which one I liked the best because you were all great. I like that you're doing good things, you're proud of yourself, and you seem to be able to work as a team. So that means a lot. So you're learning a lot. Parents, you should be very proud of them because they're all smiling, and I think it's great. And it just adds to their education to be able to do these things. What I heard earlier was that that you're doing a lot of like community service, which is very important. That's one thing I've always said. If we teach our children how to give to others or to help others in need, it only makes them a better person when they're an adult, and they'll continue to do it. So you guys have it all, right? So, and congratulations on being the president. You seem very confident, very confident. And maybe someday you'll be the president of the United States. Who knows, right? Don't think positive.
Too much you
Well, no, you'll be. Well, maybe that wasn't the right time to say it, but this will help you in years to come, in high school, college, and whatever you choose later on. What you're doing now is going to help you. So keep up the good work. Very proud of you.
I too am amazed and impressed by the skills you represented here, and I hope that you are all proud of yourselves. I'm sure that your family and your teachers are as well, and thank you to the staff that take extra time to work with them. And I hope this is just the beginning, and we see you more and more engaging in your civic duties, and maybe we'll even see some of you up here on this dais in the future. Keep it up.
As said by my fellow colleagues, volunteerism is so important. It builds character and it really builds compassion. And to hear all of the things that you're involved with, Presida Eyes is one of the gems of the community that I grew up around, and I love that you guys are engaged with that wonderful program. You've got gardening going on, but what I always love is hearing folks step up to the mic and feel comfortable. And it's important that you continue to represent us in that way outside of this room and outside of your classrooms. You not only represent yourselves and your families, you obviously are great representatives of our district and our community. So I love being able to see the confidence in each of you as you come forward and speak about what you're passionate about at the school. And I just wish you continued success in all that you touch and do. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Just want to echo colleagues. You guys did a great job speaking tonight, and all the stuff that you guys have done so far this year have been amazing. So just going to wish you guys all the best for the summer as well as the next school year as well too. So I also have some certificates for all the students who spoke tonight, actually. And I just wanted to note that Alden, we don't have a certificate for you tonight, but we will give one to you as soon as we can after the meeting. Just want to let you know. Yeah.
You have this certificate of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and our special presentation to Dylan De Leon.
This is also a certificate of appreciation and for participation in the flag ceremony and a special presentation to Ayana Hernandez.
Certificate of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and special presentation for Jaden Liu.
I have another certificate of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and the special presentation here tonight. This one goes to Anna.
And let's also give Alden a round of applause as well too. Thank you again so much for coming tonight. So we're going to continue on to the meetings. Please feel free to head out early if you guys need to head out early as well.
I want to see how we talk.
Next item is item 6B, Certificate of Recognition for Luluka, Crossing Guard at Benjamin Franklin Intermediate School. Is he here?
Where's he at?
So he's not here tonight, but we will make sure to give him our certificate to make sure he's recognized for all that he's done. Next item is item 7A, public hearing. Public hearing on the 2019-2020 Local Control Accountability Plan. The governing board of the Jefferson Elementary School District will hear public comments on the Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP. The LCAP is an accountability plan that requires districts to disclose how local control funding formula, LCFF funds, are spent to provide high-quality education programs. So I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:22 p.m. Are there any speakers? If not, I will close it at 7:22 p.m. Next item is item 7B, public hearing on the district reserves in excess of minimum requirements. The governing board of the Jefferson Elementary School District will hear public comments on the district reserves in excess of minimum requirements. I will open the public hearing at 7:23 p.m. Are there any speakers on this item? Seeing none, I will close it at 7:23 p.m. Next item is item 7C, public hearing on the fiscal year 2019-2020 proposed budget. The governing board of the Jefferson Elementary School District will hear public comments on the fiscal year 2019-2020 proposed district budget. I will open the public hearing at 7:23 p.m. Are there any speakers? Seeing none, I will close it at 7:23 p.m. Next item is item 8A, board member acknowledgements and commendations.
Let's see, I'm trying to think what it was. I know, but I'm trying to think. Come back to me after.
I was fortunate enough to be at the curriculum gathering with the faculty. I thought it was pretty amazing to see a room full of educators coming after school and excited to basically sit and gather and learn about the new curriculum that they will be using to engage our students. I think this is one of the highlights outside of seeing our kids graduate and be promoted to the next level. I think when we see educators coming together and just really excited about new tools and things that they can build on. The energy in the room was pretty amazing. I honestly did not expect to see that room and the excitement. For me, it was very overwhelming. I didn't get to stay the whole time, but I was glad I was able to review some of the curriculum that we know will be in the classrooms. But I want to commend the committee for all of their diligence and their hard work, and for everyone that embraced it. I know there were it wasn't a unanimous vote, but basically it was a majority vote that accepted the new benchmark adventure curriculum. So I really appreciated being part of that experience. The other thing I wanted to extend is that this Friday, one of our first convenings for the new initiative that has been kicked off by our state superintendent will be convening in Southern California, and it's the Closing the Gap initiative. That's something everybody works on, not just as educators, but as community leaders and parents. So we hope to have a convening here maybe in the fall or late summer. The first one will be in Southern California this Friday. Next week will be in Yolo County up north. But the hope is that if you haven't already signed up to be a part of this initiative, that you could let myself know and maybe also extend your interest to our superintendent, because it definitely is an important dialogue, and I'm deeply honored to be able to represent our district there. But I also would like to extend a happy early Father's Day to all of our families for this weekend. But thank you for all your hard work. I look forward to attending some of our commencement exercises. Take care.
I just wanted to commend all of the faculty and staff in our entire district, the ones that are here, the ones that couldn't make it. We made it through a school year. It is my first school year with you. Thank you for having me be a part of this. I'm truly grateful to be on this dais with you and working together with you from from having to deal with fires to protests and everything else in between. It's been a very interesting and amazing learning experience for me here. And I commend all of you for making it another school year. I hope you all have a great summer, and we will continue to grind and work behind the scenes throughout the summer as well for you guys, okay? Thank you.
Okay. So, I'd just like to say that I took part of supporting the Pauline Brown. They were presented the Latino Film Institute Cinema Project, and those children were wonderful. What they had done, they made a little movie, and then I rode the bus with them down to San Jose to see, so they could see the first version of what it looks like, their movies, and then they had the grand premiere up at the movie theater, Juniper Sierra. And they invited everybody from the school, and it was pretty packed. And I was very proud of the students. They did extremely well, they said even better than the class before, because everybody kind of knew more what to do. We're hoping that maybe we'll be able to expand this program and make it for our middle school as well. The children learn so much. It's unbelievable that I was forgetting they were in the 4th grade. I thought they were much older. And they really were kind, and I took the bus with them that first day when we went to San Jose, and the teacher is so sweet. She speaks very softly, but they listen to her. I mean, she's great with them. And so she said, don't forget what I told you. No standing up, no this, no this. You could hear a pin drop. They were so cool, so respectful. And I just have to tell you, we have some wonderful children in our schools. Thank the teachers who help them, thank the principal, and everybody who makes a difference in their life. Because the reason the children are really successful is because someone is believing in them. Someone is believing in them that they can do it. So if you saw this program in person and you saw how they did it, you would not believe that they did so much. They wrote their own stories, they put the whole thing together, and it was all here, all from the heart. So next year we hope that maybe it'll be bigger and we'll have more and get a bigger theater even and let some other people come to see them. So I just had to brag about that and to say that there are things we do for our children that make a big difference, because when they believe in themselves and we believe in them, they can reach any heights. So that's it.
I'll keep my remarks simple. I just want to wish everybody happy summer coming up, as well as a great end to the school year. And I just want to wish all dads and all fatherly figures out there a happy Father's Day this Sunday as well too. Next item is item 8B, correspondence and superintendent comments.
Yeah, 2 quick announcements here. Since the last meeting, I was very happy to receive notice from the Silicon Valley Community Foundation that they have funded us for $200,000 for continuing the summer learning program that we initiated with them several years ago. And that was wonderful news to get. And the second thing is, right before I got here, I was watching snippets of the news and learned that AB 39, which is the bill that improves the base on the local control funding formula, as well as sets a target for California to be in the top 10 of states in terms of per pupil student funding, is moving through the legislature. And we just need to make sure that our legislators know and understand that we support that. And we do have contact cards in the back tables. If you want to send your weekly email, you can target it to support AB 39.
Thank you. Next item is item 8C, persons wishing to address the board. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is usually 2 minutes. And if there's a speaker who previously, prior to you, has given similar remarks, we ask that you kind of provide some additional information if possible. The first speaker is Geneva Zuka, parent.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Zuka, and my children go to Garden Village Elementary School. I watched the last board meeting, and I wanted to respond to your passing off the responsibility of your job to the teachers. I'm at my school at least 2 times a week volunteering, getting to know the staff and how I can help. I can tell you that I have never seen any of you on the campus during school hours. You need to see what your teachers deal with on a school level. In the book, It's Your Ship by Captain Michael Abrashoff, he says, the key to a successful skipper is to see the ship through the eyes of its crew. I am here to plead before you because you are the district board and this is your ship and you need to fix it. You need to trust your teachers and see the school through their eyes. To make improvements, you need to see what they deal with on a school level. I have teachers tell me about how they've had multiple special needs students in their class and no extra support. Every special ed student needs different services. You cannot expect a teacher to do it alone. It's your job to support them and empower them and help get them what they need to be successful. That is why you are elected. We need you to support our teachers. They work hard and deserve a raise. They are working tirelessly every day, helping our students and our community. I see teachers working past school hours, doing side projects at home for their students. I see them cutting on their personal living expenses because they love teaching here. They shouldn't have to. They deserve to be given what they deserve for all the work they do. In San Francisco and San Mateo area, people need a 4.7% increase to be able to keep up with the rising cost. It's not their job to go to Sacramento and ask for raises. It's yours. Our teachers deserve the raise.
The next speaker is Wes Cole.
Good evening, Board. I wanted to introduce myself as the new Chapter 233 CSEA President of JESD. I haven't been able to attend much of the board meetings as I've been taking over the responsibility as president, which has been a very eye-opening experience for myself. So really, this was a short introduction for myself to you, put a face to the name, I guess, and I'm looking forward to working with every single one of you to make this a much more collaborative mindset for the district between CSEA, AFT, and the district. So, thank you.
Next speaker is Pamela DiGiovanni.
Good evening, board members. I just want to make it real quick, but let me begin by highlighting not just the M. Pauline Brown thing that I humbly attended, but also today at Woodrow, great things are happening. The city is working in partnership. That's what I mean, partnership. Together, because we are a community, and doing the curb cuts to make sure that those children are safe, and that this is how community works. And we want to continue this. And also, I've been able to attend TRP, giving out awards. So when you say about community, this is our community, and the teachers are a part of our leadership of our community, and so are our board members, as well as the men. But we need to take care of one another. And when we say take care of one another, they've already given up, I think, previously, when things were tough, they did a 1%, which I'm really surprised, and that they did that. But the cost of living is still going skyrocketing, and we are losing teachers. And I saw there today, even at Woodrow, they're staying after school to help the children. They have the garden. They are doing this at Tobias. I mean, they are sacrificing with things that you don't ever see. I mean, after school programs are starting. Phone calls are going out to let the parents know tomorrow's an early day. These things are happening on the ground, and I would like to say that these teachers deserve, we need to keep them. It's vital. Again, I'm sorry I have to repeat, it's the heartbeat of our community, and you know it. Every one of you care about these teachers. So let's translate that into giving them what they deserve so that we can keep them in our seats, in our classrooms, in our community, and keep the families going, the families who support and love them. Keep those children. These children tonight, they need to know they have a future. They need to know that that same teacher is going to be there that they saw on the playground next time, not a new face. The continuity is important for them. The stability is important for them because they cannot sleep. They have anxiety. I've talked to some of the children, and that's unacceptable. So keep these teachers, give them what they deserve, and you can do it. You have it in your reserves, and you'll still be healthy. Things are moving forward, and we all move forward together as a community. Thank you.
Next speaker is Paul Hagan, AFT 3267 President.
Oh, good evening, school board. Paul Hagan, President, AFT 3267. I hate following Pamela. Next time, could you put me ahead of that? Thank you. But really, I just wanted to, just piggyback on Bernie's good news on AB 39, because this is really good news. The legislature may be starting to listen and hear us, but I also, Bernie forgot to mention that AB 39 is a bill that was sponsored by the California Federation of Teachers, and I just wanted to make sure that you know that. So, thank you all for being here.
That was the last speaker. There are other speaker cards, but I will call you guys up at that item. The next item is item 9, general functions, consent agenda. The administration recommends approval of the starred items on the rest of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. So moving along. The next item is item 10C, Special Education Committee presentation. Dr. James Adams, Special Education Director, will present with members of the committee comprised of general education and special education teachers, site and district office administrators, findings and ideas of next steps to support students with disabilities as part of the performance indicator review.
Thank you.
Dr. Adams.
Hi, good evening, board members. Mr. Vidalis, thank you so much. Let's see if it's over here. I don't see it over here yet, but. Oh, that one's not working, so we can shift our attention. So tonight, what I want to do, just to get started, I want to really thank our program coordinator, Colleen Miller, had a family emergency. She really wanted to be here tonight to present with us, but she wasn't able to do that tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk just a little bit about our presentation here. Oops, a little too fast. So basically, I'm going to talk about the state of the district in special education, a little bit of understanding about what's going on in something called PIR, which is called Performance Indicator Review, that the state sends us to help us understand some of our goals and objectives we need to think about. I want to describe how we use continuous improvement science. When Ms. McCulloch was here, she facilitated that for us. We miss her deeply. And think about some of the root causes, and I'll explain what that means. Share some ideas for the future and ideas to do that we can support each other here. Okay. So the state is holding the district accountable on these certain plans, okay? And there's these indicators, and I've talked about them in previous years before as well. And so what's been happening, and I've shared this before, the State Director of Special Education is envisioning a system, one system to support all students. And the belief is special education is not a place, but a service or system of services to meet the needs of a child, okay? And this is the report that came out in 2015. Kristen Wright, the director of special ed at the state level. This came out, and they've been talking about this since 2005, really trying to talk about how do we create more inclusive practices in the district. I'll talk a little bit later about what those vocabulary words mean. How we can help support teachers, related service providers, administrators, and schools to understand how to do this. That's really important, using MTSS and other frameworks that we can talk about. Oh, sorry, it's a little slow. Sorry, I'll do it again. There we go. So we know here in Jefferson that we believe in a culture that promotes that everyone belongs here. And we're making progress, and we have a lot of things to be proud of. And I want to start that first, right? Because sometimes when you see a state report, you're like, oh, what are they saying? But I just want us to be very clear that we have a lot to be proud of. And we are making progress in a lot of our goals. So overall, we're doing a good job. Some of the things that are on here are saying we're compliant, meaning that we have preschool for kids, we have our assessments are on time, that we include parents at an appropriate level on all our IEPs. We almost have 100% actually where parents say they did participate in their IEPs. Disproportionality is something we'll talk about a little bit further, but it basically means that we don't have an overrepresentation. We do have a overrepresentation in a certain area, and I'll talk about in a second. And that we, when we go to test a student, we have 60 days to do that assessment. That's what that 60-day timeline means. And C to B means kids from 0 to 3, when they transition, if they have developmental disabilities for GGRC and such, we do the assessments on time, so there's no delay when they turn 3 years old, they're starting in a preschool program. That's what that means. So those are all really great things to think about. So the state has come up with this new method of trying to hold us accountable in certain areas, remembering that the idea is here, how do we start moving our districts toward more inclusive practices. So the first indicator there, assessment, that one I'll talk about in a second. The next one is LRE, that means least restrictive environment, that means kids not being served in segregated environments. And disproportionality by disability. Now this was not part of the PIR because you had to have basically a problem for 3 years running to be in this PIR. So we're only in 2 years, and disproportionality here means we have too many kids, Latino kids, who are having IEPs due to specific learning disabilities. We're trying to make progress on this. We're testing kids appropriately, getting professional development to do that. I think we're moving forward, but that's what that disproportionality means. Too many kids that speak Spanish, Latino kids who are specific learning disabled, okay, compared to state averages, right? That's where that comes from. All right. I just wanted, this came from the state, they're a little dry, sorry, but I'm going to show you just real fast what this PIR meant. And this basically is this review, it just started this year. It's basically to oversee quality assurance for districts, and it's designed to help us create a process to understand what we need to do and how we as a district ourselves can fix it. The state's not telling us how to do it. So we got a committee together, which I'll talk about, to really think about what we can do as a team to fix these problems. LEAs are, that means districts, right? So if anyone in the audience doesn't know, LEA is Jefferson School District. So what happened is that the state requests that the SELPA at San Mateo County and ourselves get together and really start questioning students with disability are general education students first. It allows us to plan for students with disabilities alongside as part of the general education environment. And many of these same students we all know are unduplicated groups, so often they are EL, like I just talked about, or low SES, or foster youth. So it's often these students go together, and the state's saying we want to take seriously to see if you're having disproportionality and other types of LRE issues. So what we did is we developed this team, PIR team. This was the recommendation for the state. You'll see here in a minute we went well beyond this. We really included quite a few additional people than even the state recommended. We developed a schedule. We had 2 meetings to talk about root causes, basically getting together and say what is getting in our way to help kids have access to gen ed. Why also do we have too many kids who are taking the CASP test, which I'll explain. Our special ed students who take the CASP test perform below district averages for other kids that have learning disabilities. So they're not compared to the general population. So I'll talk more about that too. And try to figure out how can we really work as a group to solve this problem. So this is our team here in Jefferson School District. You can see we had gen ed teachers. I had reached out to school sites through administrators for individuals that like to volunteer. Of course, there was a timesheet for people that stayed after if there's anything, but they had subs for the gen ed teachers. And then these other service providers from AFT president, you know, what do you call it, CSEA president, sorry, I was going to say his name. We had a really good representation. Even someone from the SELPA showed up to make sure that we're actually doing this. She came to both of our meetings to assure that we were doing this. And, you know, I just wanted to share that we had a lot of people participating in this. They also wanted us to look at these indicators and to perform this root cause analysis, like I said. And this is exactly what we did. I want to also make a point that in our LCAP, we already have embedded in there areas where we are supporting students with special needs in the LCAP already, which, to be honest, many states aren't doing, and in California, many districts aren't doing either who use that process. So we were ahead of the curve, actually, and compared to a lot of places in San Mateo County. And this is sort of the timeline, and that's why I'm here in June giving this presentation to you. You can see why that's here. We're doing that. So what I want to do is just talk really quickly a little bit about what this means. This performance indicator basically means that kids within special education who are learning disabled, mostly learning disabled, who take the CASP, are not achieving at the rate we'd expect them to compared to other kids who have learning disabilities. That's very important. People get a little confused about that. So we're pretty close. If you look at that, 13.6 as the target, we're a little bit over that, so we didn't make it. The math achievement rate, 11.4, we didn't make it either, 12.6, right? So the state, and again, this is 3 years in a row, and that's why this is coming up as an area of need. Okay. The next one, JSD did not increase general education access for students in special day classes. That's that LRE discussion, least restrictive environment. So what does that mean? In the past, everything's a little older for the state, right? So they give us the numbers from 16-17 and 17-18. And as you can see, the target they have is 23.6 in 16-17, and in 17-18 it's 22.6. You notice it's decreasing. The state tells us it will continue to decrease. They don't tell us by how much, but they do tell us it will continue to decrease. What does this mean? It means the percent of students who are not accessing general education. This continues to be an area of need for us. We're pretty close. Sometimes, if you think about it, we're close, but actually we're not that close according to the state, right? Those percentage differences say we're going in the wrong direction rather than the right direction. So we need to take this seriously. So what problem we're trying to solve? When the team got together, they really want to say, how can we increase general education access for students in special ed to meet or exceed the state recommended percentage? How can we do that? So right now we want to get less than 22%. And so that's one of the things that came up. So another AIM statement that we got together is that maybe by 2020, 75% of our students with IEPs will have access to gen ed environment 51% or more of the school day. So these were just some concepts thrown out. Now, we started thinking about some ideas. The hows aren't fleshed out yet, and I'll talk about we still have a lot of work to do to collaborate and to work on this. But these are some AIM statements that say this is the direction that the state would like us to think about, and this is the direction that we want to be able to do. And so we're going to continue solving those problems. Okay. So this is some of the priorities that came up. So as the teachers and staff work together, how do we support our gen ed and special ed staff to effectively collaborate? How do we allow them to work together to serve our kids with special needs? That is a challenge that I'm hearing, right? That people have good intentions, but the planning of that takes time and effort and energy, right? We have certain things in place, but clearly it's not working the way it should work yet. So that was one of the big things. Additional items to train gen ed staff in how to read IEPs for kids who might be in their classroom, and how to support the gen ed teacher to support the student and to modify their work. Also, how to effectively schedule IEPs, right? Because going to IEPs can take quite a bit of time. How do we schedule those appropriately? Sorry? Sorry. Assure students are using accommodations in the classroom that they will use on CASP. So that was one of the ideas that some of our LD students go to take the CASP test, and maybe they're not using those accommodations in their classroom. Imagine if you get an accommodation of using dictation software in a CASP, but you're not using that every day. If we've all used dictation software, it takes a lot of practice, right? So we're like, maybe these kids have to use these accommodations to be able to know how to do it on their state testing. That was one of perhaps the root causes of what was going on for some of these students. So what I want to do now is kind of help us understand a little bit about the data in Jefferson, because I think if we define some terms, look at some data, we'll understand a little bit more about what's next for us. So inclusion. I think there's a lot of confusion. I'm trying to work on a working definition of what inclusion is. Inclusion is basically any student that's on that gen ed roster. Okay? That means that they live in that gen ed teacher's classroom. all right? These kids are in that class and their attendance is taken in that classroom, all right? So they get special ed services that can be pushed into their gen ed classroom or pulled out. So think about services, for example, like RSP or speech or OT or mental health. Sometimes those kids are pulled out for those services, sometimes they're pushed in. Inclusion includes kids that are speech and language impaired, kids have learning disabilities, kids have autism. Any eligibility within special education, a student could be included in that gen ed roster. And when we talk about LRE, that's what they're talking about. How do we get kids more access in that gen ed environment? Okay, that's one area they're talking about. The next one I want us to look at is how many kids in Jefferson School District are fully included? We have about 227. You know, in special ed, there's always ebb and flow of numbers based on our IEPs, but at the last data point, we have 227 kids who are identified as being speech and language impaired. We have 149 who have specific learning disabilities. We have 47 who are eligible as having autistic-like behaviors, and we have 7 students that have intellectual disability. Okay, these are kids that are in gen ed classes now in the roster of a gen ed teacher. That's what that looks like, okay? Not long ago, we used to put a lot of kids with SLD and SLI in special day classes. So we are making progress. We used to say, you have dyslexia, you go to a special class. In Jefferson School District, we are making progress. We have a handful, I think it's maybe 3 kids who are either SLI only or specific learners who are in a special day class. So we've made huge improvements over the past 5 years of solving that problem. Okay, that's another thing we should really think about. So most of those kids, 98% of kids that are SLD, SLI are in gen ed classes. Mainstreaming. That's another thing that we keep talking about. Mainstreaming are kids that live in a special day class. That special ed teacher is their teacher of record. They take the role every day, okay? That's what that means. These students gain access to gen ed by mainstreaming, entering the gen ed classroom, and they go for a period of day, such as recess, PE, library, lunch, gardening, right? A lot of kids will go to that. They can go for ELA or math. This is often called push-in, all right? This is about how many kids that are mainstreamed right now. About 184 kids of our students in special ed have some type of mainstreaming on their IEP. What's important to think about, if you look at the statistic, most kids that are in special day classes, this number is really telling us the 78 to 65 there, most of our kids that have autism or intellectual disability are most of their day in a special day classroom. So what's happening is we have done a really good job of mainstreaming kids for lunch and PE and recess and gardening. But the state is telling us that's not enough time. We've maxed it. They know exactly what we're doing. They're saying, how are they getting more access in that gen ed classroom? We know you've already maxed out all your time in recess and lunch and PE and gardening. We need to push you to have a little bit more time that's in that gen ed classroom. What I also want to talk about is the idea of ed benefit. Ed benefit means that students access gen ed. It doesn't mean they have to be at grade level. It means some type of benefit. The law is just peer socialization, friendships, following routines, going in and out of a classroom, something like that. That could be enough of ed benefit. But I just wanted to show this a little bit so you can see most kids that are in our special day classes do spend most of their day in that classroom. So currently in Jefferson, 57 out of those 184 students who are in the special day class, that's TK through 8, are being mainstreamed for academic activities. That's 31%. So this doesn't include PE, lunch, recess, library. So 31% of those, so 57 of those students do go into a gen ed class for academics. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and that's what the state's saying. That's not good enough. We need to increase this number. That's really what the state is saying to us. That number is too low, Jefferson School District. Okay? So we do have a process and procedure for mainstreaming. I've learned all through PRI that some people didn't know what it was. They didn't know it existed. We did a lot of training to try to help people understand what that is, but clearly it's work that needs to be done. The SDC teacher, the special ed service providers follow procedure with mainstreaming. In some it's built, which includes SKIA support and the gen ed teacher. The gen ed teacher needs to be a part of that. The site administrator needs to be leading that process to create that collaboration and understanding. I also included that for just the board members. If you want to see that mainstreaming process is at the end. You can look at it later if you want. But we're really trying to be thoughtful about that process. We don't want to do a dump and run, so to speak. You know, a kid, yeah, mainstreaming, okay, now you go there and no one's going to help you. And if people are feeling like that, I know some people are, we definitely have to work on that. This is what we'll talk about at the end. However, sometimes we have kids that move into our district from another district, and on their IEP is mainstreaming. We cannot make them go through that mainstreaming process. We have to say, this is their IEP, we need to implement this IEP immediately, but it still remains we should come together and talk about the supports to help that kid be successful in that classroom. Okay. Another question that I'm often asked is, where are all these kids at? What do they look like, right? What schools might they be in? This is a breakdown of the kids that are in mainstreaming for academics. I'm not counting the kids. This is that 57. I'm not counting the kids that go for lunch, recess, library. So if you look at each school, you can see the number of kids that are actually in a gen ed classroom for academic time. I can give you the percentage of that time at another time. It was just too much to do on a slide, right? But this is the time. So you can see which schools have quite a few students, which schools have fewer students, but every single school has kids fully included that are, not fully included, getting mainstreaming who are not fully included, meaning they're visiting that gen ed classroom for a period of time. Okay, and that's what it looks like, if people wanted to know that. Another question I get often is, why is it now in Jefferson that we have SDCs at certain campuses? You know, I've been in this district a long time, 17, 18 years as a psychologist before I took this job. And we used to have kids go kindergarten, first grade at one school, second, third grade at another school, fourth, fifth at another school. Our kids with the most vulnerability to transitions, kids with autism, ID, were moving around, not part of that school community. So we wanted to help families and kids feel part of a school community. Another thing is when a kid starts at a school in kindergarten there, you know, in Jefferson we have school boundaries, right? And so we think sometimes this school is where the kid would go, but they've only been at one school their whole life. So the family and the kid never think about that not as their home school, even though I still record where their home school might be, if that makes sense. So it could be their home school is Woodrow Wilson, but they're going to George Washington. But if they've only been at George Washington, a family and kid only thinks their school is George Washington. Does that make sense a little bit about that? So there's also complicated things there also that students have the right to stay put, meaning we just can't move them unfairly. Right? We have the right to keep kids where they are if that's the appropriate environment for them. Okay, so really we want to keep talking about who is providing support for mainstreaming. And again, through this PIR process, it really said, you know, team, you know, and I know many people who are on the meeting, we all know each other for a long time, it's not working as well as it could, period. But at the same time, we had everyone here that talks about how they help individually trying to help. Paraprofessionals help all the time. Our SKIAs, paraprofessionals are amazing. But as we know, because of what we talked about, sometimes it's hard to find staffing, right? So to build a program on paraprofessionals is really difficult in this Bay Area because you're not able to find the staff all the time. Every day, if you look at it, many people are out sick. So you think there's going to be a paraprofessional for a kid, sometimes they're not there. These are realistic things we have to talk about. Co-teaching, which is really great in other parts of the country. I mean, I'm struggling to find special ed teachers every day, right? So I just can't hire a bunch of new special ed teachers to co-teach either. We have to uniquely come together to think about how to solve this problem. But we have quite a few support staff to try to start this process, to work with gen ed peers, to try to support, differentiate to doing that. Thank you to the board. You know, when we started this endeavor, we have 2 inclusion specialists now who definitely do that. You know, we have a long way to go for 16 schools for 2 people, but you know that we're really trying to work very hard. They're excellent in trying to do that for us. Behaviorists we have in the district, all types of supports providers. So what are we doing? We're, you know, trying some direct services to push into the gen ed classroom. We're trying to consult, collaborate, and model instructional strategies modifications. We're trying to do training. And we're going to continue to think about what training needs to be done here in Jefferson School District, because it's not just how to If a kid is very far, how do they access that ed benefit? How does a teacher know what to do in that classroom? When is the best time to go, right? These are things that take time. Gen Ed and special ed have collaboration meetings once or two, but there's a lot of competing demands for collaboration in our district, right? So I can't say that every time we have collaboration that they're going to talk about their special ed student in that classroom. It is a time that people can do that, but it may not always be the best time or a time that can work. And we want to continue to facilitate the special ed process, planning, placement, and coordination of services. So it's very transparent. And that's why one of the things as PIR was to sit with the representatives so they can share back out. What do the numbers really look like? So if you say you have 5 mainstream kids in your class, if that kid is only going to library with your class for 2 periods, does that count as mainstream? I don't know. If they're in your classroom when you're doing academics, so there's all these little fine details that's really hard to figure out. Right? And I don't pretend to have all the answers. It really is a collaborative effort to try to make that happen. So what are we going to do? We're going to continue to do things we're doing, but also have an annual survey regarding special ed processes, surfaces, and support. As we know, over these past 5 years, the County Office of Ed has given us less options. So we also understand we're in a cultural shift. Many of our students that had developmental disabilities used to be in county programs. Right? Increasingly, those kids are in our district, which is where they belong, in my personal opinion. But at the same time, we don't have many options for them. And their families want them close to home. They used to go down, past Redwood City every day. How many people drive down that way? Imagine a little kid with autism doing that all the time. It's really challenging. We still do have kids in some county programs that have more mod severe disorders. One of the things I wanted to talk about in our district, we actually have 5 kids that are considered severe. Every other kid is mild moderate. I often call them moderate moderates, but there's a technical understanding of what a severe kid looks like. We have 5 of them in the district. Some of the kids that have more medically fragile types of disabilities, things like that, are still in our county program, and they're there because they have severe disabilities. And they require nursing care, suctioning, changing standards, all types of things like that. So I wanted to explain what that was a little bit too. So we're going to continue to try to make that kind of information transparent, right? Because I realize my job and the job of my staff is to make sure that we're communicating clearly with facts and numbers about what's happening out there so we can make informed decisions about how to support each other. So what we're going to do is continue our collaboration. We are definitely formulating formation of a committee to made up of stakeholders that we meet at least 3 times starting next year. AFT asked for that. I think we all were saying the same thing. PIR was a stepping stone the state kind of got us to, but we need to get together because, like I said, I can't say that I have an answer. My special ed teachers don't have all the answers. Our gen ed folks don't have all the answers. So getting together to try to figure this out, given some of the unique circumstances I talked about, is really important. There was one slide that I think I accidentally slipped over, but I really want to show it. Let me see what slide that was. How much time do I have? Doesn't want to tell me. It didn't work here. 30 seconds. Thank you, Mr. Valenti. I think it's important because sometimes, when you see this state stuff, I'm going to go back here, sorry. It's worth it here. I think I know where it is. Okay. Bear with me. Sorry. Maybe I accidentally deleted it. Well, I will share it later, but I'll just verbalize it. That I wanted us to recognize that in our SELPA, in our county, there's some districts that are doing this better than others. South San Francisco also was having a hard time with LRE. Pacifica is okay on that. Bayshore is struggling with that. Brisbane is okay with that. San Bruno is okay with that. San Mateo Foster City is still struggling a bit on that too. Redwood City is okay. Cabrillo and San Carlos were okay for the LRE, meaning they're having more kids access gen ed. So it's also helping some of our staff to go see where it's working okay, and also pairing up and partnering with other districts that are struggling with it so that we're not always feeling alone about doing that. Because we have some people around us that are doing it okay, and we have some districts that are struggling with this as well. I still have no idea where that slide is. But thank you so much for your time this evening.
Cool. I have a set of speaker cards, so I was just going to call the speakers up before we have discussion. I just want to remind speakers you have up to 2 minutes to speak. So the first speaker is, her name's Yudi.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
So I'm speaking on behalf of a family member, and then I'm also speaking on behalf of myself, another family member. Dear community, I join your voices, so this is on behalf of the parent. I join your voices today in support of a better plan for the education of all children. I'm grateful for the services my children have received in this district, and we continue to work hard for them to have adequate support at every stage of this ongoing process. I believe nowadays no one needs to be convinced of the immense value of inclusion or mainstream education for those children with an IEP that recommends it. My intent is not to convince you, but to invite you to take a closer look to how essential it has been for my children and my family and the communities they will be serving in the future, what they are currently receiving. I am the parent of 2 children, each with an IEP who receive inclusion education. Thanks to the education and support they are receiving from their teachers and the inclusion team, my children have learned to communicate better verbally, in writing, and in conversations. They have developed social emotional skills to be individuals who can adapt and contribute to society. They have improved fine motor and gross motor skills, which has positively impacted their ability to be productive, to work well with others, and to do meaningful work. Our family is able to have better dynamic, less frustration, less arguments, and meaningful experiences because of everything they're learning from either mainstream or inclusive education, all the work that everyone here knows about and is doing. My children receive various support, and I know their teachers value it and want them in their classroom. Also, there are essential skills your children, speaking to other parents, who may or may not have an IEP, have been able to develop and learn because of the presence of my children and other children with IEP in their classroom. To name a few: empathy, patience, being present, emotional IQ, all parts of a healthy social emotional development. They have also gained metacognitive development. They learn many academic concepts that would have been otherwise difficult for them to learn, and we're speaking of the children who have no IEP. If it wasn't for the presence of my children in their classroom, as their instructions get adapted, teachers and families have other ways to teach children who may be showing difficulties in particular concepts, and we would have not found out. As you can see, your children are actually better prepared for the real world because of the presence of children with IEP in their classroom. The key to their success thus far has been based on working closely and collaboratively with an entire team of people who support my kids' education. It takes work, but I'm so thankful to you all, and I know I speak for numerous families, children, teachers, and for our communities. So I am done with that part.
So normally each speaker has up to 2 minutes to speak in general.
Right, so I noticed on the May, one person spoke on behalf of 3 people.
Mr. Vidalis, we did not.
So there's precedent for that, so I was counting on that.
Generally, we don't do that and should not have been allowed in May either. However, you can put in another speaker card to speak for yourself if that was speaking for a family member. Is that?
I did put 2 cards.
Oh, you put 2
one
cards in?
for the parents and one for the, so the parent is, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So dear community, I recognize that this is a topic that triggers us differently and engages us from a survival to a higher order level. We are triggered differently if I tell you the story of the child who gets home concerned and hurt because there's a child in their classroom who seems to need support and is not receiving adequate support. We are moved to a different space after you hear success stories like the one that I just shared with you. We are all different and have inherited, either genetically or through experiences, some form of a special need, even though it might not be identified. My intent today is to give voice to the side of our brain, our intuition, and our reality, because we need to look at the bigger picture. Let us remember that the current institutionalized educational system, and I pause to say that because that's what we have inherited, has evolved to include children with special needs. We have federal and state law that protects them. In the area of evolving for a better education for all children, I don't mean to romanticize the work. I know it's hard work. The data from the experiences you shared last month and today suggests the need for a better plan and resources that work more in tune with the need. And by in tune, I mean competency, in tune with the need of the child, and being present in the classroom. Segregating children with special needs, any form of that, is not the answer. Individualized educational plan with qualified competent support in lower ratio classroom is a large part of the solution. We live in a world where more children have been identified and still some are not diagnosed. So looking forward, this plan that we are creating is not just going to serve us now, but it's going to prepare us for how we're going to be dealing with this in the future, because more and more children are being diagnosed and identified. Having a diverse group of children in a classroom will prepare our children better for the world. So we are in a globalized situation. We're not preparing children for our cities, we're preparing them for the world. So I invite you to continue the collective thinking to form a better plan. Specifically, define what is needed and what are the specific tools and resources that are needed. How is a collective plan implemented? Where you survey the need of the community. A survey was mentioned before, where you survey the need of the families and you survey the need of the parents. And you ask them specifically, what solutions do you see and how do you see yourself supporting the solutions to? Thank you.
The next speaker is Mark Allen Pond.
He's good.
Thank you.
We have to bring it all together.
Good evening, board members. I'm Mark Allen Pond, second grade teacher from JFK. Thank you for having special ed put on the agenda tonight. Thank you for listening to us. First, I would like to share some advice for our SPED department, district, and also our board members. Number one, when teachers have been asking for help for well over a year regarding mainstreaming and inclusion, do not ignore and abandon them. Don't say it's a JFK school site issue and the teachers there are just complaining. It is not a JFK school site issue when our site is mainstreaming for 7 other school sites. Rather, it's a district issue and a district responsibility. It's the SPED department and district's responsibility to make sure that the mainstreaming inclusion plan that they have implemented is working, executed well, and meets the needs of the students. If it's not successful, then changes need to be made to the plan. Number 2, come into a general ed classroom where there is mainstreaming and full inclusion. We know this has not occurred at all at JFK. Don't just come in for just a 2-minute walkthrough, but spend an hour. In fact, teach a lesson while mainstreaming multiple students, working with a full inclusion student, and instructing a full general ed roster. Why? You don't know if you haven't experienced it. You can learn a lot about what works and what clearly doesn't. As educators, do not be so far removed from the student that you don't have a clue as to the reality of what is occurring in the classroom. Number 3, make sure SPED communication, such as laws, guidelines, etc., are clear from the top on down. We should not hear conflicting statements on the same topics from our director, our psychologists, and SPED teachers. That has occurred several times. We all need to be on the same page with the same information. That includes the director, special ed department, psychologists, administrators, special ed teachers, RSP teachers, general ed teachers, and aides. Number 4. Dr. Adams, I appreciate that you finally sent out a mainstreaming inclusion annual survey to all of the teachers. However, you sent it out 29 hours before the board meeting at the busiest and most exhausting time of the year for teachers. It really should have gone out 3 years ago, before the mainstreaming inclusion plan ever began, and since then, every year after that. And by the way, Dr. Adams, the chart that you showed, the number of students mainstreaming academically, was not accurate with JFK. nor did it include those students mainstreaming for social reasons. So those are not correct totals. Board members, second, I'd like to
Mr.
talk
Pong.
about accountability.
So
Yes.
you've gone over your limit. I realized at the last meeting you also went over your limit. Just want to flag that for you now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So
Thank
if
you,
you if you can finish the next 30 seconds, that was
Thank you. I'd like to talk about accountability. As a teacher, my administrators observe me teaching lessons both formally and informally. They may do walkthroughs, they watch how I teach and conduct myself, all to make sure I'm doing my job and doing it well. I believe we need to do the same for our SPED department and district. For far too long, our concerns were completely ignored. And again, teachers and students were abandoned. For accountability, you may ask the SPED department and district questions. However, I think it's even more important that you ask the teachers, the ones on the front line, the ones that are putting in the countless hours and energy to implement the district's plan. 4 questions. Are you mainstreaming? Number 2, if so, how many students are you mainstreaming? How many full inclusion students? Number 3, what sort of support has the SPED department and district provided for the students and you to be successful? Number 4, does the SPED department and district need to do more? The third item is that we are ready for the SPED department and the district to address our concerns for this coming August. Too many special ed students are being mainstreamed into a classroom, which is not best practice to have their needs met. Mainstreaming multiple students is a heavy, heavy workload placed upon a teacher. It is leading to stress and mental breakdowns for the most veteran of teachers. The inequity, a select number of teachers are mainstreaming for the entire district. Here's a new one. Have they been compensated for doing much more work? 2 questions. This is what's happening at JFK. How will 2 third-grade teachers successfully meet the needs of their own class, 2 full inclusion, and 3 mainstreaming students? That's a very tall task. Listen to this one. How will 2 fourth-grade teachers successfully meet the needs of their own class, 3 full inclusion, and 7 mainstreaming students? Here's the most shocking update. Listen to this. It's not 2 fourth-grade teachers. It's 1 fourth-grade teacher, hear this, teachers, and 1 4-5 split. 1 4-5 split. That's impossible. Obviously, from our district's point of view, best practices is what is best for our students is completely thrown out the window. I, along with my colleagues, we were left stunned and speechless when we heard this news about a split classroom, then mainstream, then full inclusion, having to deal with new math curriculum that we just did, and we're adopting a new language arts this fall. That's an impossible task. One other point, JFK is losing 3 amazing veteran teachers. They have chosen to transfer to another school site. Do you think there is any correlation between them wanting to leave and the district's special ed pilot school plan and their lack of response and support the past 3 years? Absolutely, there is a correlation. The district and SPED department don't care, but to the JFK staff, to the JFK family, we care. I will close right now. So board members, I hope the SPED department and district will listen to this advice and learn from their past mistakes. I hope that there is accountability so that the right actions are taken to meet our students' needs. And finally, I hope that the SPED department and the district use best practices and put our students first to address the high mainstreaming inclusion numbers for this fall's 3rd and 4th grade classes. I hope we will see positive change come August. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Sofia Rodriguez.
Hi, my name is Sofia Rodriguez. I'm a parent from JFK, and I want to say thank you for all your work that you are doing with the special needs children. It is important and very valuable. But I also want to know what it is that you're doing for all the children in the general education. My child included, and many other children, who their daily classroom is interrupted because the teacher has no help in getting the help they need to deal with the children that they are not responsible for. This is not what they signed up for. They signed up to teach and to teach children because that is where their heart is. But when they need the help, it is your responsibility to help them. Your responsibility to help the children who need the help. The kids that it doesn't show on there, the kids that are in the general education system that need the special needs, they don't have aides. They need aides. They don't have anyone there helping them. So you want to include them into the general education system. Are you going to also include the aides that come with it? And again, like they just finished saying, they are losing teachers. My child will not have a teacher that I know everyone loves in that school. Why? Because you're not helping them. Please take this into consideration when you work with everyone here from the state and anywhere else. Help. It's needed. Thank you.
The next speaker is Joanne. I'm going to Pasquan. Yeah, sorry.
Good evening, and thank you for listening and hearing everyone's concern. I'm here on behalf of my son, Matthew, and I will be speaking for him and the rest of the kids who have special needs. It took me 1 year to fight and call the district, make complaints. I even wrote a letter to the mayor about what's happening to my son. It bears my heart to see my son cry when he can't know what 1 + 1 is. And for a parent trying to explain that with my son with having a language impairment is a struggle for us. It brings tears to my heart. And I hope you guys see what the teachers also deal with. I volunteer at Thomas Edison most of the time, and also I am part of the PTO, and I'm there to support the school. And seeing my son struggle every day, not having friends, walking by himself, just breaks my heart. When I see the teachers complain that I have 24 kids, I can't deal with just having your son most of the time, giving him the routines and the schedule. I had to beg for an IEP and having them monthly meetings just to check if they're doing their jobs right. Parents, I have parents at a support group that complains that doesn't know English. And sometimes they struggle and they don't know what IEP is. They don't know what ASD is. And I'm there to support the parents. Maybe it's time to train parents how to handle IEP meetings. Maybe it's time to have staffs, to have teachers' aides in the class. Because can you imagine teaching 24 kids and you're by yourself with children that has special needs? Please take it, consider it. Thank you.
So that was the last speaker card. I will now kind of open discussion with our board members. If there are any questions or comments or thoughts.
You want me to go first?
You go first. You're the expert.
All right. Well, we have, I'm sure, plenty of comments and questions as well. My first question is for Dr. Adams. So I've heard a few people refer to a plan, but I don't know what plan they're referring to. This pilot school plan, special ed plan. Do we have a special ed plan?
I'm not quite sure what they meant by pilot. Oh, sorry. I'm not quite sure what they meant by pilot plan. I'll have to seek more clarity on that.
So the closest thing to the plan is responding to the performance indicator?
No.
No? Okay.
So we have policies and procedures, but I guess the idea of what happened is as slowly over time as kids came back and there's no county programs, we opened more special day classes in our district. And also, like I said before, students to move around from school site to school site was not going to be an option for us. We wanted kids to have a continuum to stay, so we located schools that had the lowest numbers of students and the classroom space, and that's why JFK and FDR were identified. Also, MP Brown has two. So I'm not really quite sure what that plan is, but that's how it slowly evolved like that. And so over time, there's been policies and procedures, and I hear that yeah, I need to seek more clarification what they meant for that plan, but there's not necessarily a plan. And just so the survey, I met with AFT group, and I met with the AFT group not long ago, and Ms. Takla actually recommended that survey, which, honestly, I wish I'd thought about sooner, so that's why I apologize it just came out. But I clearly let it know that, now or into the fall would be a good idea, anticipation of having these 3 meetings that we would be meeting as, gen ed and special ed all together. So the survey there wasn't a due date that it was due before the end of the school year. So I apologize if that was understood to be that, but I'm sorry, I don't really know what that's your reference.
And then I had another question about, I got a little confused when I hear mainstreaming at different schools, so just correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have any students that are in the SEC class in one school and then going to a general ed class in another school, do we?
No, we do not.
Okay,
And that's
it
why.
sounded like that's what was said tonight.
No, that's not true. So one of the things is, it is a fact that students that are mainstreamed at these campuses that have higher numbers have higher kids with mainstreaming needs, right? So if you're at a school that has 2 SDCs with kids versus a school that has 3 SDCs, JFK has 3 SDCs in the terms, even though there's 2 preschools there, there's 5 total, those preschoolers don't mainstream to gen ed, so there's 3 classes of SDCs. Those mainstream, that impacts those classes, right? The same with FDR, right? That they have 4 classes, and there's 4 classes of SDC at FDR that do mainstream. Where if you're at a school like Tobias, right, for example, there's not an SDC, so any kid, there's no mainstreaming going on there. All those kids would be fully included.
But also at those schools where they are being mainstreamed from the SEC class, it sounded like earlier you said that they're mainly going to the non-academic portion of the class.
Well, when we look through, and that's something, when we get together, I mean, look, I can only see what's on kids' IEPs. If there's other practices going on that I don't know about, then I should know.
I'm actually a little bit on your side right now.
No, I'm just saying, so I can just give you, I can just say
Okay.
what the IEP
All right, hold on a
actually
second.
says.
So here's the thing, I don't want to get to the details of that. So it sounds like to me that there's not a lot of students, first of all, being mainstreamed from the SEC classes. It was the chart that I saw, the numbers were pretty low. Second of all,
57 students, yes.
Second of all, they're being mainstreamed into PE, art, I don't know what the other subjects?
Lunch and.
Okay, so that's not really academic, that's not academic instruction, which I don't understand what a paraprofessional needs to be in the classroom for if they're not, needing that academic instruction. So there's a lot of confusion that I'm hearing tonight. And then also, it sounds like some of the complaints are about behavior or dealing with students. Inclusion in least restrictive environment is the federal law. It's not this director's opinion or his whim that he just wants to dump the students in the class. It's federal law. You have to start first from the general ed class with the teacher and or the students, the general ed students. That's what inclusion is. So they can actually be considered part of the general ed environment, even if they're in contact with the other general ed students. So that's where they get percentage of time in general ed. But if it's not academic instruction, we need to be more precise with what we're advocating for, what we're talking about. If we need more support in the classroom, I'm in support of that, and we should be pushing for that. But it sounds like the need doesn't sound like it's consistent with what's being said. So we need more information. We're going to need more meetings, especially when people are talking about a plan and then we say we don't have a plan. What we have right now is confusion, it sounds like. Okay.
Yes.
And okay. And a lack of support. And so I'll take part of that responsibility. Some of these things we're just out hearing. We've heard some things too. Some people who have been here for years and years know that we were very forceful and firm with our communication about the special ed program, and we wanted to see changes. And we did see changes, and we got reports that things were getting better, but now we're hearing something different. So we need to get on top of this and have more communication and clear the confusion.
What I'd like to say is that I agree, and I think that, there's certain things that are going on where some schools we have to learn from are doing a much better job than other schools, and I'm not sure why, to be honest, and that's why getting together. Is it because the mainstream policy wasn't followed? Is it because there's too many kids there? Is it because there's not enough training? But there is a variability within the school systems. We have FDR, we have, George Washington, we have MP Brown, that are heavily impacted also with mainstreaming and inclusive practices. And, I just don't know where the breakdown happened in some sites. That's all. And I think that's really what I'm here to say is this is some information to try to start. Let's gather some information. It could be within our district. We have some windows of success. In other places, we don't have windows of success. But I really am a little bit hesitant to claim the whole system's broken. And maybe it is, I don't know. But I just don't hear as many concerns everywhere. But I bet there are concerns. And I want to create a voice so people can say that this isn't working for me or this is the supports that I need.
Okay.
And that's the whole idea for the survey.
The last thing I just want to say is that, like I said before, inclusion, least restrictive environment, these things are federal law. This is what teachers, actually, this is their job. Someone mentioned earlier that it's not their responsibility. Yes, it is. General ed teachers are responsible for every single student in that room. They have to learn how to differentiate their teaching. They need support, though. They need to understand what accommodations are, what modifications are, and not just wait for the special ed teacher to tell them. This is something that's an issue not just in this district, though. Special ed is hard. And I know because I've done just about every position you can think of in schools. Until the last 2 years, I was an RSP teacher, and I said, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I understand the difficulty. So imagine that. It's hard for the special ed or the education specialist, so we know it's doubly hard for the general education teacher. Now, this is something we all need to address then. Like, the general education teachers, I know is asking you to do more work, but you have to do your research yourself too. You have to find out how to reach the students and how to meet their needs. We all have to do it. And then I will pledge my energy and my support to find the support to help you, but it's gonna have to be human support too. That's the last thing I want to say is when we have the students in there, students with exceptionalities or learning differences, we still need the paraprofessional to push in with them if we don't have the RSP teacher in there with them. We have to, it's not a less restrictive environment if we just push them in there without the support. It actually becomes more restrictive.
And that is our policy. And that's where, when I hear teachers saying that's not going along with them, I'm concerned. Because that's why I put that policy there. So I can't enforce everything every day, but the idea is that the gen ed teacher is supposed to say, I don't need this person anymore. Or this, I'm successful now. So that's where there's a breakdown, which I need to find out more information or work with my colleagues, like how did that happen, right? And I don't want to finger point. I think everyone just wants to support kids and have the support they need. But if you look at that's supposed to happen. No kid is supposed to just be dumped into a class for mainstreaming where that gen ed teacher doesn't have an aide or a paraprofessional or the teacher or someone at that school to support them for that kid in the classroom. So that's why I did attach that for you at the back. So you can see that.
Well, this is a biggie. There's a lot of things have been said tonight, and I have to say, I think we need to fix a lot of things. And one of the things I'm thinking way back, I've been here a long time, in the district, we used to have a lot of aides that were trained to be in the classroom to help out. And if but if we don't do what we need to do, then our children are just sliding through. And I'm hearing this tonight, and it's really, it's maddening. We did a lot years ago, and I don't know why we did. Maybe it was a little bit more money, I don't know. But we had it. Now, I've been an adult school teacher, and I had children come into that class, and they were little children, and they had some issues. And they finally had to bring an aide in to take care of them, because how could I do my job as a teacher? So I hear you teachers, how can you do your job the best you can to teach children when you also have to take away the time to teach the children with needs. If we can try to get the people that can be in the classroom to help the children along with the teacher. But this is getting to be impossible, and we'll lose teachers. We'll lose teachers. I understand what you're saying, that everyone's responsible, but not everybody can be a special ed teacher. I don't mean that as saying bad for the teachers, but I'm just saying that some are really good at it, and some, it just isn't. They're not going to give their best. But also, I heard some parents before and tonight, then the other children are struggling in the classroom because they're not special ed children. So this is a big thing now. This is really, we better be working on this and getting staff inside of those classrooms to help in every way possible so special ed children can survive and be prosperous, and our regular students do not fall back because there isn't time to dedicate to them as well. This is a big issue, big issue. I hope we can take care of it, and I hope we can set aside some money so all children will be successful, all, but not at the point where I hear some teachers, it's just not, they just can't do it all alone. So, does that sound all right to you? I know you're passionate about special ed, and so am I, but I think we're not doing it.
In general, I didn't ask to be a special ed teacher. Actually, I was asked to do it, but it's because I look at students and I just try to meet their needs.
Yes, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. But I'm hearing from others that there isn't the time, there isn't the help. One person can't do it all. We should be having more aides to do that. I really think we need to, or this program is not going to survive. And I hear all this. I'm almost disappointed that I have to hear this. We have to do something quick. Okay?
Yes, actually, this question is for you also, Dr. Adams. Is it possible, or do you already know what the different aspects are of the other school districts that are making them successful?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. When I talk to my fellow directors, so this is a cultural shift, and sometimes things have happened more quickly because, as Mr. Ali said, a parent can choose to have their student placed in a gen ed class, and actually the law is very clear. We must offer that first. Even if we might think as educators it's not the best environment yet, if a parent says, I want my kid fully included, a kid with Down syndrome, a kid with CP, a kid in a stander, if that parent wants that kid in gen ed all day, we have to give that to them first. Honestly, we don't have that many parents that ask that question. Right? I'm just being honest. So some districts, when you look, San Carlos, a colleague of mine, many of the parents say, I want my kid fully included. And yes, we have, we can give you the number. I'm sure we have almost tripled the amount of paraprofessionals since I've started this job. I'm sure of it. And we can get that information to you. So that's why sometimes some districts are moving more quickly, because parents are saying, I want my kid fully included. And I actually am not allowed to say that student can't go into that environment. As a school district, I shouldn't say myself, right? The school district. We have to serve that kid the best we can in that environment and document if we thought maybe that kid wasn't accessing ed benefit. But remember, ed benefit is very broad. It's not academics. It's not their behavior, right? It's that they are getting some benefit from that classroom. The standard is very high. They have some benefit in that classroom, they can stay. So I think some districts have that pressure where together special ed and parents help to understand that maybe they want their kids more included more quickly. Here in Jefferson, it's a little bit more slow, where we had kids in county programs, they came back, so we kind of took kids from SDC environments and placed them again in an SDC environment. And if you remember Kristen Wright's thing, really the idea is to start at the preschool. We're trying to figure out ways, working with the county, to create some inclusive preschools so kids understand what an inclusive environment feels like at preschool, then kindergarten, then first grade, right? To take a kid out of an SDC and place them in a gen ed classroom usually isn't good practice. But again, if a parent wants that, we have to try that first. We can't just say, you're not doing good enough. We have sometimes an older belief that kids have to show they're doing good enough in that SDC environment to go to a gen ed classroom. And that's just the opposite of the law. So when you're talking about the law, that's where we're trying to interface. But more importantly, what I'm trying to say is I think that because of this cultural shift, I hear almost every teacher I ever interact with tells me, I just want to know how to do this better. Sometimes they tell me an aid is great, but sometimes the aid's not enough. Sometimes the aid doesn't know what to do either, or the aid triggers the kid. I mean, every kid is individualized. Some kid might need an aid, some kid might not need an aid. So there's not one solution to and that's why it's complicated special ed. If we knew one thing to do for every single kid, we'd roll that out. But every single kid is differentiated and individualized per their IEP.
Okay.
So if that answers your question in a long breath,
So
sorry.
this is just a chart for compliance, not an indicator of success.
Correct.
Okay. When you
That's absolutely correct.
speak to the other directors, do they give you indication of success? And what?
Well, I mean, success is in the eye of the beholder, right? So I feel that the director in some places tell me that they feel like they're successful. But I think what I'd like to do is have teacher to teacher talk to people there, paraprofessional, what's successful and what's not, right? So that we really have that information about what's working and what's not, just not an indicator.
Got it.
Yeah.
I would also like to see this plan, and if we could really completely unpack the resources, tools, and sources of support in that plan as well.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think a lot of things I wanted to share have been said. I think the main thing I feel right now, it's very concerning to me to see about 20 educators stand up and identify a problem. That doesn't sit well with me, period. No matter what the concerns may be, them standing here tonight is a concern to me, that voices weren't heard, which then tells me that there's a breakdown in communication. Not doing the blame game. It's evident that something went wrong, or communication was not funneled however it was supposed to reach you, or vice versa. I will say, if anything's been identified tonight, I've identified that as an issue. I see that as an issue, because there's no way we can continue to figure out what needs to be fixed if we can't communicate. So my ask is, especially as a parent of a special needs child, I'm getting emotional because I feel everything that has been shared tonight. Being that parent who feels frustrated because another child is disrupting my child's learning. Being a parent who wants their child to be mainstream, but also feels that that might not work for her. And then the advocacy piece for parents who just do not know how to do that. There needs to be education. We need to do better about having these conversations, expanding these conversations, and being more inclusive of community stakeholders. Parents need to be educated. Because to be really frank, I have been on the receiving end where we get pushed through the IEP system and the process, and we're just sitting there, and I've been with parents who don't have a clue what just happened, and then they're asked to sign things. So what I would like to ask is to slow down the process, come back to the beginning, and have another conversation, because there's a huge disconnect that's happening here. And as board members, we have a responsibility to figure it out with everyone. We haven't heard these things before. We haven't, not in this way. So that again doesn't sit well with me. We're not going to play the blame game, because the reality is everyone has a job to do in this. You did put up that there's a committee. I didn't see any of the board members on there. I would like to ask that board members, I'd like to ask Superintendent if board members can be a part of that committee, that it seems to have everyone in the committee. I don't recall seeing a parent or parents in that committee. I don't recall. I can't really read it off of here. And we don't have to be at every meeting, but I'm just concerned about not getting information until it's an issue. We should be hearing things and updates on how things are going, and not just when something is wrong. I did also want to ask Mr. Pond, I just wanted a copy of everything you said. It was hard for me to process, being very emotional. You had a lot of questions, but I would love to have a copy of that because I think that should be included in a lot of things that we're asking. I know you have a huge undertaking you have a great team. I've seen them in action. But the reality is that something's broken here. And it's everyone's responsibility to figure out how to fix it. And I think the first thing that needs to be fixed is communication. And then from there, I think after continuing to expand how we're talking about identifying and process, my other thing is when we speak to it being the law, I get that piece. But at the end of the day, we need to also speak to quality and best practices. It's not just about the law. I would like to see us work from a place of quality and not just be compliance driven. Because I'll be honest with you, when you were doing your presentation, I was flustered and I was confused because I felt like I was getting a lot of percentages and it was a great presentation. But for me, it was a lot of compliance pieces. I wanted to hear more quality. I don't think that you intentionally left that out, but I would love to see in the future that we kind of see some of that because I bet you it's happening, but we would love to hear more about that. And speaking to one of the parents, I mean, she shared some of that. She shared some of the quality experiences that are happening. And I would love to see that more in what you presented tonight, because those stories are very important. But I just want to reiterate quality and best practices on both ends. And that speaks to support. And support means support for families, support for our teachers, and support especially for our kids, because at the end of the day, it's all about the kids. So thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation. And from the last several meetings, we've heard a wide array of sort of teachers, parents sort of expressing their concern. So I was going to ask Mr. Dallas if it's possible that this item comes up sometime in the fall, just as an update, because I realize school year ends in 2 days, and I feel that having teachers and parents, everybody back here to get an update, I think would be timely, especially seeing what we could possibly do over the course of summer and maybe early fall as a way to sort of get back up speed in terms of initiatives and steps kind of moving forward.
I kind of like to see us get paperwork that's written down of all the things that are being said, the things that are lacking, the things that we might need to enhance, because somehow that's going to have to be taken care of during the summer. So when September comes, maybe everybody will be in a position to make this work. If we wait till September, it's going to take time to get started. And I see Elena Francisco over there. She's spent a lot of time in special ed, and I'm sure she would love to come give us some advice. But I think we can't wait. We've heard what we heard. We just need to be able to work and support something that's going to be better in September. Because we don't get off during the summer, you know. We're still here.
Any other comments?
Well,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams, Dr. Adams. Next item is item 11F, fiscal year 2019-2020 budget development presentation. The administration will present the fiscal year 2019-2020 proposed budget based on the district's fiscal year 2019-2020 LCAP and preliminary multi-year financial projection for the district. Ms. Kessler.
Good evening. So the year's coming to a close, and now we're moving on to our budget for next year. And
I'm very disappointed.
I have to speak up. Okay, all right. The year's coming to a close, and we have put together the budget for next year, and you had your public hearing for it. And I'm here to present what that budget is going to look like for next year. Still? You want me to use that?
I was going to stop in there one point, but
I almost did. I almost did too.
How's this?
Then I saw you writing, I said, relax.
The budget for 1920. I'm here to talk about that. So the budget is built on certain assumptions, and these are your basic assumptions with the COLA, because we have the budget and the multi-year projection. So, and the multi-year projection is going to be 21 and 22 year. And of course, we need to be able to have our reserve throughout those years. So here's the COLA for all these years, as well as our ADA. And our ADA, what we're basing our ADA on next year and the following years is what the P2 ADA was this year. We don't know if it's going to decline or increase. We will find, we've been declining. Hopefully we'll stop. Eventually we'll have to stop and go up, and hopefully that'll happen soon. So the enrollment, the attendance is now down to 57-59 for 1920 and the 2 out years as well. The unduplicated count is also going down. And so where we had, for this year, we have 71.4%, and that's a rolling average. We will be at 70.69% in the out years. And that will maintain there if we maintain our same unduplicated percentage. Now, that's a 0.71% decrease, less than 1%, but that's $250,000 a year. That's what that decrease costs us. And of course, that has to do with the increased minimum wage, and also perhaps the fear of families applying for this if the ICE comes after them. In addition, sorry. Can't hold a microphone and do other things at the same time. So also included in the budget and the out years is the step and column, that's 3.5%, and then the STIRS and the PERS. And the STIRS here is based on the governor's May revise. Matter of fact, the entire budget is based on the governor's May revise. So what does that mean financially to the district? Based on those assumptions, this will be our LCFF funding will be $58 million, and that is $400,000 more than it was this year. Now, I want to let you know that because of declining enrollment, if we did not have declining enrollment, if we did not lose the declining enrollment protection, and we had maintained the same ADA level as in the past, instead of getting $400,000, we would be getting $1,867,000 more money. So we have lost $1.5 million as a result of loss of declining enrollment protection and also reduction in unduplicated count. And also, as you know, this governor is not giving any kind of one-time funds. I mean, that's something Governor Brown liked to do because it was not a commitment from year to year. It could be a one-year give and then disappear in those out years. And so this governor is not giving any kind of one-time funds. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what... sorry, I already have that page. So what has been taken out of the budget? And this was approved by the board in the second interim, so it's included and approved by the board. And it is not in the next year's budget because that's what happened in the second interim. And so things that have helped us to financially close the gap between revenues and expenditures in those out years, because as you know, in the out years, we were not able to meet our 3% reserve for economic uncertainty unless we made reductions. And so these were the reductions that were approved that helped us to close that gap so that we can meet our 3% obligation. And so included in that is a decrease of positions and a delay in filling positions that included classroom teachers, support teachers, and non-support staff across all district departments. It also includes a reduction in the S&C grant funding to the school sites. the discretionary funding to them. A temporary decrease in the transfer to deferred maintenance. And of course, that temporary decrease to deferred maintenance means that we have to really kind of think about what kind of deferred maintenance we're going to do, and we might have to delay some things that we would normally want to do, but decide we need to delay it because we need to meet our financial obligations, as well as using some of our temporarily discontinuing the transfer that we did to the technology reserve, and instead, as you see down at the very bottom, using some of that technology reserve to support Chromebooks and PCs, whereas before we just used general fund dollars. And so now we're going to use some of that reserve, which is really nice that we saved up that reserve in the past, because now we have it to continue that 6th grade Chromebooks to the students. And also, what we've decreased department budgets, and all the different departments, as you see, technology, instruction, so that's in curriculum and instruction, is what I mean by instruction there. Business, superintendent's office, and human resources, all those departments have also reduced their budgets for the following year. And then that textbook reserve that we also had, and we moved some funds over when we want to adopt textbooks. Well, we've also using those funds to provide the professional development necessary for the use of those textbooks. So those are all the things that were included in the second interim that help us to get to where we need to be in our 1920 budget and the 2 out years. There are some increases in next year's budget, and one of those things that actually started this year, one of those things is the technology technician, and that is to support all those extra devices that we have out there that the students are using, that the staff is using. Technology is now, education seems to use that as its #1 tool now, and of course years ago that wasn't true. Also, as special ed, orthopedically impaired support teacher. This is something that is required for us to provide these services. So rather than contract out at a higher price, we're doing it within a district and it costs a little bit less, though we do have to do it. And also included in the budget is the 1% salary and benefits increase that we approved this year through negotiations, and of course those are all included in the out years. What is not included in this budget is any additional salary and benefits increases. So when you see the budget and the multi-year projection, please keep in mind, because it does look good, that it doesn't include any kind of increases in the out years. And that we're negotiating, and we'll be going back into negotiations in the fall. We hope to complete it then. And then we'll also know what our unaudited actuals are. We'll know how well we did, how much less deficit spending we did than is budgeted. So also keep in mind, the budget does not include any kind of carryovers in it. It never does, because it's still in the budget. So the assumption is, until it's not spent, that it will be spent this year. So until we close out this year and have the unspent monies go into the end fund balance, we don't budget to the out year. Otherwise, the same dollar would be budgeted in 2 years, and that would certainly not be a good way of budgeting. It would not be correct.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
So the site carryovers is they're actually held in our general fund, not.
They're also what?
They're held in our district general fund, not actually at the site.
They are part of the district general fund, but when we close the books, we put them as assigned, so that when we look at that end fund balance, we say these funds are assigned for carryover
certain
purposes.
school, okay.
Yeah, because that's what they're authorized for, unless
We make
you
a
decide not
change.
to authorize them. So, and then just so that you know, since the 15-16 school year, we have 385 fewer students. Or, I'm sorry, we have 385 less ADA, which is really more students, because you know, 96.5% of the time they show up. So that is 96.5% of the loss in students. So around a little over 400 fewer students, right, in order to have 385 less ADA. That's approximately $3,850,000 less money just because of that. So, let me see where we're going here. Yeah, I get to the page, which you already have. Maybe you viewed it already. Oh, and by the way, this, again, as it always is, the budget is built off the LCAP and the activities that are in the LCAP. They support it. So here we are. I think you have full pages on that, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. And the pointer here doesn't work and such. So as you can see, the first column is is this year, and what is budgeted for this year. And you see in the bottom yellow line with the brackets, it's and I have to do it this way because I can't see that. A $3.8 million deficit spending. But again, we will not have that $3.8 million deficit spending because of several different things. One, carryovers are included in that number that haven't been determined yet. Two, we've reduced spending before we're trying to spend less so that we don't have as high of a deficit spending. And also our inability to fill some positions that remained vacant. And when I was saying about holding off on filling positions, delay in filling them, that is continuing, but we won't include that in the budget. And so then when you look at the 1920 year, you see that we have in the budget $1.7 million planned deficit spending. And as we go out over the years, because of the increase in COLA throughout the years, by the time we get to year 22, 23, we're not deficit spending. And in the past, I've always said, this out year we need $2.5 million of reductions, and this out year we need another $1 million of reductions and such. There's no need for additional reductions to meet our reserve in the 22-23 year. However, again, I want to let you know that there is this is based on steady enrollment. It's based on the steady funding, and it's based on no increases, no salary increases. So if we have salary increases, this number will change and we'll need to address something. Again, it's also based on no increase in the LCFF base, whereas Superintendent Vidalis was talking to you about AB 39, the hopeful increase to the base of the LCFF funding. That would be a wonderful thing, and this does not include anything from that because it's not in the law. And we don't know if it does get passed. We don't know how much they'll fund each year. And so we'll have to work with that as it comes along. But that would be a great start because that would put that target. Right now, we've met the target. There is no target above where we are. It's just COLA that we're getting, and the COLA is not enough to cover our needs. So with this budget, we are able to meet our multi-year projection obligations. This is what happens to our fund balance. And of course, it flattens out because once you get to a year where our revenues and our expenditures, our revenues can cover our expenditures, then we don't continue to drop in our reserves, our fund balance, and that meets our 3% reserve. Now, granted, we want to have a 5% reserve, but we don't have that right now. So our next steps, first off, we the budget needs to be passed by the end of this month. It'll come to you at the next meeting. And there has to be a public hearing, which you had earlier today, both with the LCAP and with the budget. So that's happened. Once the budget is passed, the LCAP will have to be passed before the budget. And then once it is passed, it will go to the County Office of Ed. They will review our budget. They will look at our assumptions. And by August 15th, they will respond to us. And if they say we need to make some adjustments, then we would do that. We would need to do that. But I feel that they probably will not make us make financial adjustments. I can't tell you for sure if they'll have us make any kind of adjustment, but I don't really think it'll be a financial one. And then once we get approved, and the state passes the state budget for next year, we will adapt our budget to reflect that state budget. And I don't feel that there will be any really big changes. Even if AB 39 passes, it'll take time before those funds come to us. That's a future thing, and that would be great. And that's it. Any questions that I can answer for you?
So a while back, Superintendent Vidales mentioned that the county office kind of slapped us on the wrist about using our reserves. How we adjust that?
That's true. So for instance, we are using, in this budget, we are using some reserves to support the Chromebooks and the PCs, and we're also using some reserves to support the PD for the textbook purchases.
Yeah, and Mr. Ali, perhaps if you want to use the word slap, the hardest slap on our wrist was about implementing the reductions that were identified in the second interim, which were approximately $2 million worth of reductions. And they said, you must do that, and if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And we have made those reductions, and we are sticking to the plan to stick to that. And that's why you don't see a big negative.
These reductions.
Yeah, a big deficit in those out years because we've already made $2 million worth of reductions. Now, granted, some of those are temporary. We can't do them forever. We have to bring them back. But we're cautiously watching to see when we can bring them back and not have to have a qualified or negative budget in the future.
Okay, that's a perfect answer. Thanks.
No?
Nope.
No.
Thank you, Ms. Kessler, for presenting all of this information. For this slide here,
Okay.
if we included the vacancies and the carryover, will we still have this 3.8 over expenditure for this year?
It wouldn't be as high. That is correct.
It would still be just as high?
No.
Oh, it would not be.
So this
Okay.
is why, when we close out the year, we will have, it was at second interim that we worked with the out years. And there were positions that we were still trying to fill that are not filled. And so that number will not be as bad. That number will be, I don't know, under 2 million? I'm going to guess.
So
It's hard to say.
the question, Ms. Kessler, was if we spent everything that was in the budget, the way that we wrote the budget, would that number be 3.8 million? And yes, that is true.
Yes. If we
We're
spent
not spending everything in the budget, partially because that number is 3.8 million negative, and we've made small reductions across the years, like do we really need to do this, do we really need to do that? Ms. Kessler believes, and I've looked at this with her, that that number will be closer to 2 million, but still 2 million deficit. So we've reduced our deficit by half, partially through some of the actions that were just listed, and the others, of trying to Just because we said we were going to spend, $20 on something, if we can spend $10 on it, that's good. So that's what we've been doing, is reducing our expenses, reducing our, not doing some things.
So I know it sounds like I'm trying to hide behind my newness, but I am still trying to get a good grasp of what our budget is and what we're spending on, and what I would like to see, if it's possible, an actual ledger. So not just our budget, but what per line item are we spending our money on?
That is in the attachment that is with the public hearing. The entire budget, line by line, is in that.
Oh, that's the one I didn't print out.
About
because it was
100
too
No,
long.
you don't want to print it. It's the 200 pages. Really, if you want to look at it, I think just the first section is the most helpful.
Absolutely.
Because it's got a lot of, the other sections are all sub-funds. The general fund, the first section, I think is probably the first 17 pages or so. I have to be, I just looked at it today, or earlier this week, and so that's line by line. And they present it in different ways. It's presented one way first, and then it's presented by object, which is a different way of looking at it. And the reason is all of these have to add up and match with each other. So
Summarized in front. And anybody who is interested in looking at it, in understanding it in more detail, I am happy to sit down with anybody. I will talk your ear off. and I'll enjoy doing it, because I'll get very excited about explaining it to you. And I'd be more than happy to. And that includes anybody in the public, of course.
What I'd like to see is, if we're going to make cuts sometimes, take kind of the frosting off. But don't hurt the cupcake. You get what I mean?
Hungry.
There are times when we see a figure. We don't want to do away with the whole thing, but are there cuts that can be made that doesn't hurt the education, that there's extra thrills here and there?
So the budget is built on the LCAP. And sometimes things in the LCAP don't end up happening.
Well,
and if they don't, but I'm required to put the budget together to support what the LCAP is.
Well, of course that, I know that, but I'm just saying is, I'd like to see a budget that shows me where every dime goes.
I'm sorry, that?
I'd like to see a budget that tells me where every dime goes. Because a lot of dimes make dollars.
Yes. So
I mean, I'm trying to say,
I can answer that.
I think we can take things and cut, and not say we're going to cut this whole thing. We're not asking to do away with big things, but sometimes there's things that we could say, well, maybe we don't do this, that doesn't hurt education and doesn't hurt salaries.
So a good place to start to get a sense of that is reading through the LCAP. The LCAP is line by line, describes what is being done and how much that costs. And you can get a good sense, and we have this year reduced many of those items back to what is more essential than what we had planned before. So I would say that it's easier to read than the budget is. But
it's not.
It's not. Well, it's got more words. I mean, if the budget is only numbers, and if you don't know,
this is just numbers to me. It's just,
no, but the LCAP has words in it, and that has, it's line by line.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's also attached in that public hearing, that LCAP. And that's longer than the budget, I think. I think it wins in pages.
Well, I did think we had to sit down and look at everything. Because to me, this is just big figures.
Okay. I'm happy to show that.
Maybe we can have a little session where we get together and just do a workshop. And really, it's up to us to look at it and make some suggestions too, because I mean, I don't know exactly how this adds up to be a certain amount of money, but it's just here. So let's do a budget study here, we get together and see all this stuff. I don't want to look at something alone. I want these guys, everybody.
Well, we have the committee, don't we?
We do, and we can call the committee again. However, what I'm going to say right now.
Hey, we're gonna do it.
We will not hold the committee until you read the LCAP.
Okay, we'll
read
do
it
that.
line by line, understand each line and how much it costs. And each item on that LCAP is reviewed by our stakeholders, and our stakeholders give input about what should be added, what should be removed, and we take that input into consideration to create it. So it's not.
We have a committee, excuse me for interrupting. We have a committee. We've never done a thing on this committee. Maybe it's time we do it.
Oh, we did meet.
Yeah, but that was like.
We met for the second interim with all the reductions.
Yeah, but it wasn't what I wanted to see.
So tell me
Hey,
when
we're
we've
gonna
read,
meet.
tell me when you've read the LCAP, and then we'll call it again.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll read it. I've already reviewed it, but it's not like I haven't read it. I want to do something about it.
I think that's all the comments. Thank you very much, Ms. Kessler.
You're welcome.
Next item is item 14A, Board Policies, Administrative Regulations. December 2018 CSBA Board Policy Revisions, second reading. The board will review and revise Board Policies, Administrative Regulations from December 2018 CSBA Board Policy Revisions as stated in the second reading. If there are no comments, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I motion to approve the board policies and administrative regulations stated here from December 2018 CSBA board policy revisions on second reading.
Second?
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next item is item 15, Board Governance Matters. 15A, District Program Services and Commitment Reduction. The board will review 2020-2021 budgeted items and determine ways to reduce district commitments, programs, and services in order to meet expenditure goals and for inclusion in the 2020-2021 LCAP. Mr. Dallas.
Yes, so the board has asked for me and administration to help you identify some sources of funds for other district purposes. And so we went through the different items that have been added to our budget since 2012, 2013, and I've been asked, why did you choose 2012, 2013? Well, because if you remember back in 2011, 2012, we were a district that was down to the skeleton of what a district should be. We didn't have every school day. We didn't have fully staffed schools in terms of support staff. We were cut back tremendously. So I focused, because I know that we don't want to get back to where we're below 2011-12, and I would not recommend that. So the items there are 2012, 2013, and I just want to be clear. Should the board decide to direct me to ensure that these items are not included in a future LCAP and therefore a future budget, this would be for the 2020-21 school year. That's next July, a year from now. So there's plenty of time to plan for and include those reductions in a future LCAP. Let's see. And I would just request that the board make any decisions in a timely manner, as these decisions do require implementation time, and they also, as the funds are identified and freed up for other district purposes, we do need to have some time to determine how to use those additional funds. You heard tonight that there's requests to use funds for lots of different things. In the area of special education, I do not disagree with that. When I was looking at the budget earlier today, and Ms. Kessler, you can remind me, I noticed there's a line called contributions, which essentially is what the district contributes. A big chunk of it is what the district contributes to the general fund to pay for special education. Is that correct? And that number was in the range of like $10 to $11 million. So right now, the general fund supports special education in the range of $10 to $1 million over what the state provides and over what the federal government provides. So, so just for your knowledge that that's what that line item is when you look at the budget, it says contributions. That's mostly special education. It's not all of it, but a large chunk of it is. So, you know, the board can discuss and look at these items. Ms. Kessler, is that the one that includes my considerations? Language wrong.
Two-pager.
Yeah. Yeah, it includes some thoughts on you know, what would happen if we do make those reductions, what you could consider.
Doesn't have the extra. I give up.
Is there a revision on something yet?
This is exactly what you received at the last board meeting. I do want to say, I do have one revision to make to this. The figure for reducing the 7 instructional support teachers, that figure is 880, and that is correct. That's what those cost. But if we were to reduce all 7 of them, we would only need to cut, it would only save us, 7 new teachers, an average salary of 7 new teachers, which is about $560,000. So the savings would only be 560, even though the cost is 880.
So where is this at?
Where's the?
That would be item B, I think is what it's labeled as.
No, where you were talking about the, you said where it says contributions?
That is in the budget, in the first, under the public hearing of the budget.
Oh, okay.
It's in there. I can copy it and scan it and highlight that for you so you can see. Yeah, it's in that. It's in the first part, actually. That's why I noticed it, because it was in the first few pages, so I get lost after page 6 or 7.
Okay, so looking at this is the same as this.
If you want to see. It's highlighted.
That's,
The majority is to special ed.
all right. So right now, are we reviewing to get recommendations on what we want to?
So what I want to hear is I want to hear motions to direct the superintendent to not include certain things in the 2020-21 LCAP so that those funds can be freed up for other district purposes.
Got you.
Back, are those contributions, is that also salary for aides or anything?
It's the whole program, so it includes salaries and mostly it's salaries because that's 86% of our budget.
And non-public schools and the County Office of Ed are big on there too.
So,
Eliminate the remaining positions.
so what do we feel, what's the amount of money that we have to cut? And do we have to cut?
We don't have to cut if you don't want to do anything with those funds.
Okay.
But what I have heard from this board is that you would like to have some funds to do some other things with.
Mm-hmm.
And my recollection is that would be in the area of 1.1 or $1.2 million.
Yeah, I thought so. Yep.
Any thoughts from any board members on any items in particular?
Well, from the first page, we had a drop in student enrollment in the music program, and I love music. And but I remember this being brought up at the last meeting that we might not need. What does it say? The board may wish to consider reducing by one music teacher, as this will return the program to the level from before, given the drop in student enrollment. So out of all the possibilities on the first page, that's the only one that I would be in agreement with, is maybe eliminating one music teacher.
So we've had the extra music teacher for 3 years. Prior to that, we've only had 3 music teachers, and we added a 4th one 3 years ago. So it's a relatively new addition, but still valuable, but we have dropped in the number of students by 400, as you saw. And we can go back to the previous model of music instruction.
So do you want individual motions on all of these?
Yeah, and before you get there, I have, it seems like you're having a hard time with this. I have some more forceful considerations, you might say, about what, if I was to choose the 5 things that I think could be reduced, what they would be. Again, I don't want to choose this. This is not something I desire. Like I mentioned before, it's a program that I've overseen how this program has been built and added to, and it's not something that I take lightly. So let me pass that out to you and to the public so you can see what those might be.
Reading my mind.
Gives more than we need. It's not like 2 pages, right?
They're listed a little bit differently, particularly the administrator positions. So again, these are positions that are extra. They're not required. It was something that we put in place. Again, student enrollment has dropped. It hasn't been as strong, and there are now other supports to support IEP workload at some of the school sites that have a disproportionate number of IEPs. So that would be my first consideration that my first hope of a consideration you take strongly. Discretionary fund for school sites, again, not my favorite choice, but again, something that is doable. When the board gave discretionary money to school sites, my recollection was this is where we would go if we needed to reduce. Like that was given in that same breath. Like we're going to give this money to schools, but if we have to reduce or look for funds, this is where we would go to find it. So that's in keeping with the philosophy of why we gave these funds. Instructional support teachers, again, like I said, not my choice for sure, but I feel like we're not operating the program to the level that I would like to see it in terms of quality. Splitting a teacher half-time at 2 different schools doesn't reach the number of folks who would want to be reached with a program like this. And again, if funds become available at some point, that would probably be my first thing to bring back for full-time at each school. Music teacher, Mr. Lee mentioned that already, and then the Soul Shop program, we've already reduced it to $93,000, and every school sort of picked from a menu of different activities. I think those activities might be good, but I don't know at this point I see the role of a district funding those activities, especially when it's different at every school. That seems like it would be more of a school site decision to determine how to implement the program. So those are my 5 considerations that I ask that you look at strongly. You don't have to, but I thought it'd give you a place to start.
I have a question about Soul Shop. So you mentioned 93,000 from the districts. So does currently each school set aside funds for Soul Shop if they would like to, or is that more of a district-wide support?
About 5 or 6 years ago, school sites would fund Soul Shop out of their discretionary funds. But then we started to see that there were some benefits to what Soul Shop had to offer. And so the district built it into one of their first LCAPs and funded it from a district level. This year, we saw that there was not necessarily an agreement on behalf of our stakeholders that that was the best place to spend funds. So we went out and said, if you were to do Soul Shop, which aspects of Soul Shop would you do? And different school sites chose different menu items, so to speak. And so at this point, when you have school sites choosing menu items, I think that's more appropriate for a site budget than it is for a district initiative. District initiatives should be strong and should be fully funded and should be focused instead of do what you want out of this menu. And that's what we have now. So that's why I would say a reduction in Soul Shop for the 2020-21 year would be something that the board should consider. And then school sites, should they deem Soul Shop valuable, can determine to use their site funds for that.
Mm-hmm. And would they be able to contract directly with Soul Shop without any issues, or how would that look?
Essentially, each school site is contracting with Soul Shop individually. We're just paying the bill.
Okay, got you. So I appreciate the extra commentary, and I'm still in favor of cutting one music teacher position, and I had a question about the discretionary funds for school sites. I mean, you're saying up to 10%, correct? Or you're just saying 10%?
I think I said up to 25% initially.
Okay.
But since we're cutting other things that schools might want to purchase, like Soul Shop, or more time of support staff, then my recommendation fell down to 10%. So they have funds to be able to do other things that they would choose to do.
So reduce it to 10%. That's what.
So 7, 8, 9. Okay.
Is there other administrator costs that could possibly be identified as funds to suggest taking out of the budget?
Can you explain?
So the first item on this one is administrator positions, the extra administrators that were hired. But are there any other admin costs that we could identify as
So we fund one principal per school site and one VP per middle school. And any additional administrators that are not here are funded by school site funds. And so when we reduce school site funds, then some of those positions will may also, depending on the school site's use of their funds, may also go. So.
And these positions, these dean positions and assistant principal, the persons who have those positions right now, will they be able to get another position, or how does that work?
Anyone who's been in the district for at least 2 years as a teacher can always have the classroom position back. That is a reduction in pay, but we do anticipate that there may be some administrator positions available next year because of changes in life happenings that folks could request to interview for.
Okay. Assistant principals.
Okay, so these are the things that you're bringing to us to look at. In administrator positions, extra administrators. Is this only for schools? Looks like it's only schools.
These are extra administrators at the school sites. We do have administrators in some departments, and many of those are funded from categorical budgets that are not savings to the general fund.
Okay.
And we have reduced district office or central office administrators by 1.4 from last year till this next year already.
Okay, explain that.
1.4.
All of us.
Yeah, so we reduced one administrator in the teaching and learning department that was supporting some textbook adoptions as well as the implementation of the curriculum. And we also voluntarily had an administrator request to work 0.6, a 60% week, and we did not fill that extra 40%.
Well, so what you're giving us for this, is this supposed to make us
Help us.
save money someplace? This is all the savings. And what does that mean to our budget total?
If all of these were taken into account, that would be, I think it's 1.27, yeah, 1.27.
I didn't, over here.
I'm sorry, 1.127.
Wait,
1.127 million.
That's millions, right?
Yep.
I'm going to come out and ask it. What about cuts with the governance team? Is there something there that we can identify?
Well, the
as
governance team gets your monthly stipend. Some governance team members take health insurance, so that is a cost. There is a $10,000 professional development budget for governance team members that you access to go to local as well as state conferences.
I mean, I know we don't make anything, so it wouldn't be that much of a savings to cut ours off, but others on the governance team, I know that you guys have things in your contracts that
I'm the only
for
one with a
future out
contract.
years. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, is there something there that we could look
We
at?
could discuss that in closed session, but not here.
Okay.
So we can look at that later. Thank you.
Were you talking about the cabinet when you said governance team?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, everybody on the cabinet has a regular salary schedule, just like principals and.
I'm just trying to hit every corner so that, we can identify other possibilities.
Well, are we supposed to make a decision like now?
We can, yeah.
Because this doesn't look like,
Or how about this? Is there any that there's consensus on? Even if we can't agree on them, are there any that we can agree on consensus-wise?
well, we already talked about the music teacher, which I hate to see go, but it's okay. Instructional support for teachers, I think we need that.
Should we
That's the
go
biggest
per
one.
Yeah,
item?
let's go for line item if that works. Administrative positions, any thoughts from everybody on that item at least?
Are you going on this list here?
Yeah, that was, yep.
Well, I think we need to talk about it. What we mean by administrators. Because of that down here, just the deans and all that.
Yeah.
So first of all, let me just see if I can get this straight, so we can understand this. We have .5, the dean at Susan B. Anthony. What does that mean? 5 hours?
No, that's a half-time dean at Susan B. Anthony paid for by the district. The school site pays for the other half-time. That person in that position works full-time.
Okay. So when you say the school site does it, the money still comes out of our budget.
It comes out of the budget that the board gives to the school to spend as
Yes,
the
I know.
discretionary funds.
I
Yeah,
know,
it does come out of our
But it still
budget.
comes out of the money that we have.
Yes.
Okay, so. Now, at FDR, it's a K-8 school. And they do have 7th and 8th grade there. So you're saying that we don't need an assistant principal there?
They have about 100 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students.
Uh-huh.
I think a principal and a half-time dean could work with that. FDR has about 375 students. We have a lot of elementary schools that have more than 375 students that only have a principal.
Well, I'm looking at the age bracket. That's 7th and 8th graders are a little different than just having more little kids. So I just want to make sure we're not going to be taking something away that we really need to support that age group. Well,
Anyone has any other thoughts on top of that for this item?
And that's 78,000? Is that 78,000? Is that what is that what you're referencing? Is that the budget for that item?
The vice principal at FDR school is 78,000 full-time. Half of it paid for from special education, the other half from the general fund. And my recommendation is that the general fund pays for half of a VP. That's only $10,000. So we don't have to change that. The school site can, if you choose to eliminate the special education contribution to that position, the school site can determine if they want to do the other half, or if they want to share an administrator across 2 different sites, half-time apiece, for vice principal or dean.
I'll say from my perspective, there are these 5 items on here. I feel like it becomes really tough when you cut site discretionary funds and you then expect those reduced site discretionary funds to also fund for those part-time or half-paid deans or assistant principals. So that's just my perspective. I just think that we can cut those, but then the process, schools have less site funds to be able to do the same exact thing that they were supposed to pay for. So,
it all comes out of the same
yeah,
pot.
I mean, I don't want to, but I feel like if we cut discretionary site funds, I feel like we probably have to be mindful of cutting the other stuff as well too, because they can actually eventually pay for those things that we eventually cut for them.
Well, that's why I asked about the 10%, that maybe we could just reduce that to 5%, cut, excuse me, the discretionary funds, and then just do all the rest. So, I remember too, Mr. Vidales, Superintendent Vidales, you mentioned that one reason why we could maybe eliminate the dean was because of decrease in enrollment.
Certainly the Susan B. Anthony one, that dean was given because they had reached 550 students for more than 2 years in a row. That was the target. So at their 3rd year, they were given a half-time dean position by the district. The last 2 years, they've been under 550. Next year, they will be 525, and if things continue, they'll be at 500 the year following. Prior to this, the school funded student support resource teacher to help with some of the same things that the dean does. They can do some administrative tasks, but they can still follow students and support students that needed extra support, which the dean also does, but also handles some administrative functions.
Yeah. Or I guess, is there consensus on a list at least to make the motion?
I just had a quick question about the Personnel Commission budget. Is that all administrative costs? Because, I mean, I know that the commission probably, the commissioners probably do get a stipend as well, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, their stipend is $50 a month.
Very small
and
part of this budget.
largely, it's their staff. They have a human resource director of human resources. They have 2 clerical. So it's those. That's the largest part. There is some professional development as well as supplies for interviews and that kind.
But
My
I want
suggestion with the Personnel Commission would be that however we reduce the school sites, that we also ask the Personnel Commission to do the same with their budget, and they can determine how they do that.
Well, since you asked about that question, both of you, at one time, between the Personnel Commission or even the Personnel Director for certificated, we're never up at the high level of being an assistant superintendent. They used to be directors. We had a lot of directors, so the salary was less. Same duties.
You had a full-time director instead of a half-time assistant superintendent.
What?
Before, the Personnel Commission had 1 full-time director, and now the Personnel Commission has 1 half-time assistant superintendent.
No, I'm saying they were never, in the beginning, they weren't called that. They were just directors. They were never up at the higher. I think I'm hearing on the side of the table which positions out of administration can we look at. And I'm just saying that those positions were not assistant superintendent. So if we wanted to say, we're looking at this and complaining about not wanting a principal to help students, then maybe we ought to look at something else. So I'm just,
Okay.
but we're talking.
Yeah, I understand.
And I mean, I've seen it and I've been through it, so it worked perfectly fine and only had 1 employee in there.
Yeah, I think we are staffed according to other districts our size in terms of, and maybe even thinner staffed than other districts our size, not only in the terms of the individuals that we have, number of individuals, but also the level of their positions. And I think if you look up and down the peninsula, in terms of cabinet level staff, everybody has at least 2 or 3 assistant superintendents, even if they have 2,000 students.
Well, maybe we need to get all of that and bring that into our study because,
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide that information for you to know. We have lots of...
and not every district has a personnel commission either.
No, we have...
I'm talking about that more especially, but
So
director of personnel is a lot different than giving it a title as being assistant superintendent.
I had a question mark on the Personnel Commission just because I do know the board and the Personnel Commission are different, and the governance is different. And my question that we put out there, and I'm not sure that we've gotten it back, is to what extent does the board get to have control over their budget? And I think it's more of an ask than it is a tell.
Well, that's perfectly fine.
That's my initial gut reaction, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And so
We do have a dual person.
You do have a dual person, and that was decided between the board and the Personnel Commission together. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you were there.
I was here.
Yeah.
I didn't vote for it. I'm trying to find places that we can cut that will not affect our children. That's all.
Yes. It-
No, 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 no.
I know, I'm just saying is that everything is interrelated. You know, everything is interrelated. You pull one piece out, and then it affects lots of different strands. And I'm not sure you can find a position in the district that does not impact students, because everybody does, at some point supports a school site, that supports a teacher, that supports a student. Imagine if we didn't have people who could process reimbursements in as quick a manner as we do. You know, that means somebody's out of pocket money. Right now, if someone purchases something, they submit a reimbursement, and within 2 weeks, they have the reimbursement before their credit card comes. If we had fewer, that might be a month or a month and a half before the reimbursement comes. So, and that impacts students because people are stressed out about, I don't have enough money to pay my bill.
We're stretching this.
No, I'm just saying is that it's all connected, and
No, it's all connected, but there are some things to me that are more important than other things as far as the funding. So I thought I heard on this side people questioning.
I will find out
the
more
different
information
positions.
about the role of the board in determining and working with the Personnel Commission on their budget and how they staff. My sense, even if we're talking about just a director, the Personnel Commission had a full-time HR director, and that is a lot more than a half-time assistant superintendent.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
I was going to also
I
ask,
didn't get what you said. Are you saying that if it's a director, it's more money?
A full-time director, yeah. A full-time director would be more than a half-time assistant superintendent.
Okay. Well, we'll find out about that.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about positions,
No, wait a minute. First of all, if we have a dual position, they're only working half the time. So that doesn't, the analogy doesn't work here.
Okay.
If you have a dual position and they're able to do the work, then that means you could slice it in half and make 2 directors and still make less money.
2 full-time directors
And I'm saying
is less than one.
No, half-time directors, or directors
Yeah.
with lesser salary, and they would have the time to do their work. Okay.
Yeah,
It
okay.
does work out. It did before.
Superintendent Vidalis, it would be
Yes.
great if we could get.
I can look at that, and I can tell you how the department was staffed before, and we can compare it to the way it was before.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
I was also going to ask, so you mentioned if we ask school site funds to like reduce their discretionary funds by a certain percent, what would a 5 or 10% decrease for personnel commission actually be? Or how much is that actually?
I think the Personnel Commission budget's about $300,000. So 5% of that is $15,000.
Okay.
Yeah, 385.
Most places only have a
Okay, so I think we've talked about a lot of these. Is there any, I guess, agreement on any of these one items? So I can at least make a
We
motion.
already agreed on one here.
Which one was that?
Well, we said if we had to, the music teacher, like, hate to do it to the kids.
Yeah.
I really do hate to do it.
I don't know if anyone else wanted to elaborate on the list. I wanted to say thank you, Superintendent Vidalis, because this list, in comparison to what you've given us to consider, I mean, all of it is difficult. We know that it's difficult, but I appreciate some of the detail that allows us to make a more informed decision. And with that being said, from your list, I would like to recommend the 5% reduction if we're looking at discretionary funds for school sites. I wish we didn't, of all of the things on that list, I agree with President Koo. I wish we didn't have to even consider touching any of the school site funds, because that's where they get some of the flexibility, because they're on the ground, they're there, they know what they need. Unfortunately, we got to do this. So with that being said, I support this list. As difficult as it is, I support the considerations that are listed here from our superintendent.
Except for the 5%.
And reducing the 10% to 5.
Reducing what, 10%?
The discretionary funds for school sites from 10% to 5%, which would be 175,000 instead of 350,000.
Is that a motion, Ms.?
That's a motion.
Okay.
Second.
So there's a first and a second to direct the superintendent to prepare the 2020, 2021 LCAP and budget without the following 5 items. Reduced administrative positions from extra staff administrators, reducing the discretionary site funds by 5%, reducing 7 instructional support teachers, 1 music teacher, and the social contribution from the school district.
I'm sorry, can I rewind just a little bit? Can I add to this list the additional tech support from this list?
If I can ask, so was that the one tech,
Yeah, it's a tech support, yeah.
The added tech.
was that the one you just added this year?
Yes, we just added it in November. So is that, Ms. Liagano-Ai, she's asked if she can amend your motion by adding the technology, or she can just make a separate motion after we vote on this one. We'll do it that way. Let's do it, it's cleaner.
I was going to say that I'm not comfortable removing that one position, especially because we just added it this year, and I feel like reducing.
Well, why don't we finish Ms. Liagano-Ai's motion, and it's got a second, so before we modify it.
First and second, was it roll call?
Let's do a roll call so it's clear.
Okay, can I please get a roll call?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Ms. Manio,
Aye.
Ms. Leah Inga Anawai,
Aye.
Mr. Koo.
I'm sorry, aye.
And remember that if for some reason funds appear, we will look at these to try to restore, because like I said, it is heartbreaking to make these reductions. And I think that, it does identify a source of funds for the board to determine to use differently.
So I just want to ask one question. When you're talking about the deans and all that, does that mean they're out of a job completely?
In 2021, the district will stop their contribution, so they will, either the school site will figure out a way to keep that position, or they will apply for another position, or at this point, I think everyone in the dean position is a tenured employee, so they can go back to the classroom.
Yeah, I had asked that earlier.
Yeah, I know.
And that was the reason why I said we should do 5% instead of 10%.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I'm not happy about that. I may have voted for it, but I'm not happy at all about this.
So I know you had another motion you want to make, right? Or-
I also wanted to make a motion to the additional technology technician that was recently added this school year.
Can you give a little bit more commentary on that again? Why? So on this list, you have all 4 listed. It says 1 director, 4 technicians, admin assistant, senior account assistant.
Yeah, so the consideration was that we could reduce by 1 technology technician. If you're going to do that, I need the board to also limit new devices being purchased by school sites. They can purchase replacements, but they can't purchase additional. There's no way that we can support them with the 3 that we had before. The reason we added this 4th one is we started to see the trajectory of what was being purchased at school sites, and said in order to be able to support those devices, we need an additional person.
Are any school sites slated to buy additional tech in the coming school year?
Yeah, a whole bunch of schools just bought a whole bunch just this last month to be here for the fall.
What did they buy?
Chromebooks, iPads, in addition to what the district provides.
So you're asking us to,
So sort of put a moratorium to new
coming
devices.
school year?
Well, 2020, 21, any new, well, probably with technology, you want to make it this coming school year because there's not going to be someone here to take care of them in 2020, 21.
could we place that moratorium on the next school year?
We could put it on the next school year. It's just that there's going to be a whole set of devices that are purchased next year that are not going to be able to be supported. That's why we added the position, because school sites are buying new devices all the time, not just replacing,
Right.
they're expanding.
Well, you're just going to get rid of one, there'll be three. We're not getting rid,
We're not doing that until 2021, right?
Correct.
So this coming school year, we'll still have this person.
Yeah.
But you're saying that if we get rid of that, the position and all the schools currently are obtaining new devices, then they won't be supported.
As well. They won't, I mean, they will be supported, but, I mean, and they're new, so initially they'll be okay, but, I mean, I would say 2021 works also. I mean, we'll just be clear to the schools that if they purchase new devices, be aware that the support for them may not be there like they're used to. Okay, so you've made that motion. Does it include the moratorium for new devices in 2021?
The motion includes the moratorium to begin on the next
In
school
July
year.
1, 2020, yeah.
That's correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a first and a second to direct the superintendent to prepare the 2021 LCAP and budget without paying for one technician, and to issue a moratorium on all schools from obtaining new technological devices starting on July 1st, 2020. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Ali?
Have to include about the equipment too?
It's both, yes.
Okay, no. Sorry.
Mrs. Brizuela?
Huh? Me?
Yes.
Oh, did you vote?
I voted no.
Well, I don't agree that it goes together, so. This is a hard thing to do.
Can I add a comment before we
Yeah.
vote?
Yeah.
So I just feel like this is something that can be repaired. I'm not going to say easily, but much more than any other place in this country because we're right here in the suburb of Silicon Valley. And I'm pretty sure amongst all of us, we can find a solution to refilling this void within the next school year.
I think that could be true. I haven't seen it in any school districts for
Wait.
ongoing funds, but anyway, I think we can just do that and then cut it once you have it. Do you know what I mean? Seek the funds, fund the position, and then reduce it from the general fund, which is what we do with a lot of grant funds when we get the grant. But, so right now, we do have the motion.
Okay, so can I, before we go any further, how much money is this going to be
For the one tech?
for the one tech?
100,000.
100,000 just for the tech?
Benefits,
Okay, but that's not going to happen till a year from now?
July 1, 2020. Mhm.
Okay, so we still have time before that time to put it back in.
Correct.
So if we vote no, it's really not, it's really, I mean, if we vote yes, it's really not going to affect us till another year, which gives us a chance to work on it then.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to support it because I feel that it's, we're going to find a solution to that. And if not, we get rid of it, whatever. We keep it or we get rid of it later. It's not
Okay.
happening right now. If we were doing it right now, and we're not going to have, the tech today or next week, it's a different story. We're talking about a whole year later.
Do you want to continue on your roll call?
Sure. Mrs. Brizuela?
So I'm saying yes.
Ms. Manio,
Yes.
Ms. Leah Inga Anawai, Mr. Koo.
No.
Oh, well.
Any other item for this topic?
I think that what you've identified gets you to the goal that you expressed to me. You could go deeper, or you could wait to go deeper another year.
No, we're not going any deeper.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I know we're sitting here with a lot of emotion, whether we agree or not, even on the last item, it's not because we don't care. I will say, I want to share the reason why I did not want to support the last motion is because we did meet the number that we were, at least we had identified based on the considerations we were given. And with that being said, the hope is that we, despite things that we may not have approved tonight, that we still continue to work as a collective to figure out how to fill these gaps and these voids. And with that being said, I do want to ask the superintendent, the hypothetical, should we see some of this funding restored, how soon then, or could we please have the discussion as soon as possible to see how we would allocate any surplus of funding to restore some of the things that we've decided tonight to unfortunately remove in the upcoming budget?
Yes, I think that will be part of our conversations around LCAP development that we have beginning in January. So we'll know governor's budget. We can even start those, depending on what actually is passed, start having those as early as this fall.
We still met the number even with the 5% reduction instead of 10?
We're off by 100,000, 125,000, but it's close enough. For me, not for Ms. Kessler.
Okay. Okay. So I think it sounds like we're all good on this item. Item 16, governance team member comments, reports, and board meeting reflection. You want to go first?
Let's continue to have diverse, courageous conversations. Let's continue to address breakdowns in communication across the board. And I just want to convey my deep respect to each of you. We may not always agree on things, everyone, but at the end of the day, we have to continue to be respectful and know that decisions are made from a good place. And to not personalize our disagreements, but to look at it as we share experiences, but we'll always have different perspectives. And it's important that we continue to respect our different perspectives. And with that being said, the work continues. May we continue to find the strength and the wisdom to do it. I wish everyone well.
I just want to commend us all for actually doing something very hard in a little bit of time. It didn't take us that long to come to consensus, and I want to just thank Superintendent Vidales because, we did put the pressure on him to give us more guidance in this direction. And I just wanted to also mention that we might have we discussed earlier tonight about the site carryovers and other money that was budgeted that's not going to get spent. So we might not end up making any of these cuts at all. So that's my hope. And I focused on keeping our focus on the best interests of our students.
For me, I selected, we will listen actively and communicate openly. Next item, item 17, persons wishing to address the board on closed session items. Seeing none, I will convene to closed session at 10:10 p.m.
Short recess.
We'll take a couple minutes recess
2 to 3 minutes.
for transition.